Hi, my name is Marco, and today we're going to spread the word of the Lord. The shepherd who watches through the night. Psalm 121. Lift your eyes, beloved soul. Lift them gently, even if they are weary. Lift them through the shadows, through the haze of burdens, through the heaviness of long nights. Lift them toward the hills, toward the high places where your help comes from. I lift up my eyes to the hills. From where does my help come? My help comes from the Lord, who made heaven and earth. Psalm 121 verses 1-2. There is something deeply holy about lifting your eyes in the dark. It is the soul's quiet defiance against fear, against despair, against the creeping chill of hopelessness. It is the sacred act of remembering where your help comes from. Not from yourself, not from fleeting strength, not from earthly guarantees, but from the Lord, your Maker, your Keeper, your Shepherd. He does not slumber. He does not sleep. He does not doze off while you weep silently beneath your blanket. He is not distracted while your thoughts race deep into the night. He watches. He keeps. He covers you with steadfast love while you lay still beneath the stars. The shepherd of your soul is not one who walks away at dusk. He is the one who stands guard while the world goes quiet. He is the one who wraps the midnight hours with mercy, encircling your rest with peace that passes understanding. Even now, as the night stretches long, he is near. There is no hour too late for his presence. No valley too dark for his eyes to see you. No burden too hidden for his heart to notice. And the beauty of his keeping is this: he does not simply protect you from harm, he keeps your very soul. He keeps your heart when it feels fragile. He keeps your thoughts when they wander into fear. He keeps your peace when the world feels chaotic. He keeps your identity when you forget who you are. He will not let your foot be moved. He who keeps you will not slumber. Psalm 121 verse 3. There's a quiet assurance in that. He will not let you slip. You may stumble, but you will not fall beyond grace. You may tremble, but you will not collapse into despair. You may feel weak, but you are not unguarded. Because the Lord is your keeper. He keeps you not just from the obvious storms, but from the silent erosion of your spirit. He keeps you when worry tries to wear you down from within. He keeps you when fatigue clouds your joy. He keeps you when you're too tired to pray with words, but your tears speak in your place. This is who he is, ever watchful, ever gentle, ever present. The Lord is your keeper, the Lord is your shade on your right hand. Psalm 121 verse 5. And how tender is that picture! Shade at your right hand. Close. Intimate. Protective. It means he's not far from you, not distant or abstract. He's beside you, near enough to catch your sighs, to steady your soul, to comfort your nights. He shields you from the scorching heat of pressure, stress, and spiritual fatigue. He covers you from the burning weight of expectations you were never meant to carry alone. He stands close enough to whisper peace in the silence. Even when you feel surrounded by night, you are surrounded more deeply by his nearness. And oh, how beautifully the psalm sings! The sun shall not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. Psalm 121 verse 6. This isn't just about protection from sunstroke or moon-induced restlessness. It's about the promise that no time of day, no season of your life, no cycle of weariness or fear can separate you from the shepherd's covering. He holds your days and your nights. He guards your beginnings and your endings. He watches over your comings and your goings, not occasionally, not sporadically, but forevermore. The shepherd's gaze never shifts away from you. His hands never falter in their keeping. His presence never wavers in its commitment. And this is what gives the weary soul rest. That you are not responsible for guarding yourself in every moment. You don't have to be constantly vigilant or endlessly striving. You can sleep, because he does not. You can rest, because he watches. You can be still, because he never leaves his post. Even when you're unaware, he's working. Even when you're unconscious in sleep, he's encircling you with peace. Even when your thoughts scatter, his heart remains steadfast toward you. So let your soul exhale. Let your shoulders loosen. Let your eyes close tonight with this truth wrapped around your heart. You are being watched over by the one who never grows weary. You are being guarded by the one who sees every burden you carry, even the silent ones. You are not unseen. You are not unkept. You are not vulnerable in the night. You are covered by the Shepherd of Israel, the keeper of your soul. And he is faithful still. Lift your eyes, beloved soul. Lift them gently, even if they are weary. Lift them through the shadows, through the haze of burdens, through the heaviness of long nights. Lift them toward the hills, toward the high places where your help comes from. I lift up my eyes to the hills. From where does my help come? My help comes from the Lord, who made heaven and earth. Psalm 121 verses 1-2. There is something deeply holy about lifting your eyes in the dark. It is the soul's quiet defiance against fear, against despair, against the creeping chill of hopelessness. It is the sacred act of remembering where your help comes from. Not from yourself, not from fleeting strength, not from earthly guarantees, but from the Lord, your Maker, your Keeper, your Shepherd. He does not slumber. He does not sleep. He does not doze off while you weep silently beneath your blanket. He is not distracted while your thoughts race deep into the night. He watches. He keeps. He covers you with steadfast love while you lay still beneath the stars. The Shepherd of your soul is not one who walks away at dusk. He is the one who stands guard while the world goes quiet. He is the one who wraps the midnight hours with mercy, encircling your rest with peace that passes understanding. Even now, as the night stretches long, he is near. There is no hour too late for his presence. No valley too dark for his eyes to see you. No burden too hidden for his heart to notice. And the beauty of his keeping is this: he does not simply protect you from harm, he keeps your very soul. He keeps your heart when it feels fragile. He keeps your thoughts when they wander into fear. He keeps your peace when the world feels chaotic. He keeps your identity when you forget who you are. He will not let your foot be moved. He who keeps you will not slumber. Psalm 121 verse 3. There's a quiet assurance in that. He will not let you slip. You may stumble, but you will not fall beyond grace. You may tremble, but you will not collapse into despair. You may feel weak, but you are not unguarded. Because the Lord is your keeper. He keeps you not just from the obvious storms, but from the silent erosion of your spirit. He keeps you when worry tries to wear you down from within. He keeps you when fatigue clouds your joy. He keeps you when you're too tired to pray with words, but your tears speak in your place. This is who he is, ever watchful, ever gentle, ever present. The Lord is your keeper, the Lord is your shade on your right hand. Psalm 121 verse 5. And how tender is that picture! Shade at your right hand. Close. Intimate. Protective. It means he's not far from you, not distant or abstract. He's beside you, near enough to catch your sighs, to steady your soul, to comfort your nights. He shields you from the scorching heat of pressure, stress, and spiritual fatigue. He covers you from the burning weight of expectations you were never meant to carry alone. He stands close enough to whisper peace in the silence. Even when you feel surrounded by night, you are surrounded more deeply by his nearness. And oh, how beautifully the psalm sings! The sun shall not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. Psalm 121 verse 6. This isn't just about protection from sunstroke or moon-induced restlessness. It's about the promise that no time of day, no season of your life, no cycle of weariness or fear can separate you from the Shepherd's covering. He holds your days and your nights. He guards your beginnings and your endings. He watches over your comings and your goings, not occasionally, not sporadically, but forevermore. The Shepherd's gaze never shifts away from you. His hands never falter in their keeping. His presence never wavers in its commitment. And this is what gives the weary soul rest. That you are not responsible for guarding yourself in every moment. You don't have to be constantly vigilant or endlessly striving. You can sleep, because he does not. You can rest, because he watches. You can be still, because he never leaves his post. Even when you're unaware, he's working. Even when you're unconscious in sleep, he's encircling you with peace. Even when your thoughts scatter, his heart remains steadfast toward you. So let your soul exhale. Let your shoulders loosen. Let your eyes close tonight with this truth wrapped around your heart. You are being watched over by the one who never grows weary. You are being guarded by the one who sees every burden you carry, even the silent ones. You are not unseen. You are not unkept. You are not vulnerable in the night. You are covered by the Shepherd of Israel, the keeper of your soul. And he is faithful still. Held in his hands, John 10. There is a place where the soul can rest. A place beyond the chaos, beyond the uncertainty, beyond the weight of this world. It is not a location marked on a map, nor a moment bound by time. It is a place found in the hands of the Shepherd. Jesus said, I give them eternal life, and they shall never perish. No one will snatch them out of my hand. John 10 verse 28. Pause there. Let that promise speak peace into your bones. You are in his hand. Not merely watched by him, not simply guided by him, but held, gently, securely, lovingly, in his hand. The same hands that shaped the mountains hold you. The same hands that calmed the storm hold you. The same hands that broke the bread and washed the disciples' feet hold you. The same hands that stretched wide upon the cross now cradle your soul. You are not drifting in this life unanchored. You are not exposed to the winds of fate or the whims of chance. You are not clinging for dear life while hope slips through your fingers. No, you are held. Held when the road is steady. Held when everything crumbles beneath your feet. Held in the fire, held in the flood, held in the silence, held in the storm. You are not holding on to him as much as he is holding you. So many of us walk through life afraid that we might lose our grip. Afraid that one wrong step will cause us to fall beyond grace. That one season of weakness will cast us out of his presence. That our trembling faith could cost us his favor. But the beauty of the gospel is not in the strength of your grasp, it's in the strength of his hand. No one can snatch them out of my hand. Not sin, not shame, not fear, not failure, not even death. When you fall, his hand is still beneath you. When you question, his hand still holds you. When you wander, his hand does not let go. His grip is eternal. His grasp is sure. You are not a burden to be carried reluctantly. You are not a problem to be managed. You are a beloved soul, carried, cradled, cherished. And the Shepherd is not careless with what is precious to him. His hands hold with strength, but also with tenderness. His hands do not bruise the weary. His hands do not drop the fragile. His hands do not forget the small, the broken, the overlooked. His hands remember the shape of your sorrow. His hands carry the weight of your worry. His hands trace the outline of your story, knowing every chapter, every valley, every tear. When Jesus speaks of his hand, he speaks of eternal security. This is not just comfort for the moment, it is assurance for eternity. He holds your soul beyond death, beyond time, beyond decay. My Father, who has given them to me, is greater than all. No one can snatch them out of my Father's hand. John 10 verse 29. And here, the promise deepens. Not only are you held by the Son, you are also held by the Father. Two divine hands, one divine will, to hold you forever. The Father gave you into the hands of Jesus, not to be lost, but to be kept. Not to be loaned temporarily, but to be secured eternally. You are not held loosely. You are not held with uncertainty. You are held with holy intention. You are not a leaf carried by the wind. You are a lamb carried by the Shepherd. He does not lose what he loves. He does not drop what he redeems. He does not forget what he has chosen. You are in good hands, God's hands. Hands that do not tremble, hands that do not tire, hands that do not waver. Even when your life feels fragile, your security is not. Even when your faith feels thin, your salvation is not. Even when your hope flickers, his hold does not loosen. The hands of Jesus are the safest place your soul can rest. So breathe deeply. Rest fully. Let go of the fear that you must hold everything together. You don't need to keep grasping, because you are already held. He holds you when the doctor's report shakes your world. He holds you when friends walk away and you feel forgotten. He holds you when the anxiety won't quiet. He holds you in the midnight hours when no one sees your tears but him. And when you cannot even pray, when words fail and strength fades, he still holds you. Not for a moment. Not for a season. But always. Held in his hands, you are covered by love. Held in his hands, you are safe from the storms. Held in his hands, you are anchored in grace. He knows you. He keeps you. He cherishes you. You are His. And no one, nothing, can ever take you out of His hands. Ever. Let your heart linger here, in the quiet assurance of His hands, divine hands that shaped the dust of the earth, yet now gently rest upon the fragile dust of your soul. The hands of Christ are not distant from suffering. They are not unfamiliar with pain. They are scarred hands, wounded for you, pierced for your peace. When Thomas doubted, it was those very hands Jesus showed him. Put your finger here, see my hands. John 20 verse 27. He did not hide His wounds, He used them to prove His love. So if you ever wonder whether He understands your sorrow, look at His hands. If you ever doubt whether you are truly seen, look at His hands. If you ever question if you're really worth it, look at His hands. They tell the story of a love that bleeds. A love that reaches beyond heaven's throne to cradle earth's brokenness. A love that does not run from wounds, but enters into them. You are held by the same hands that were nailed to a cross. And now, those hands will never let you go. There is something sacred about being held. Something healing. Something anchoring. It is more than affection, it is covenant. It is more than comfort, it is promise. When you are held, you are known. When you are held, you are not drifting. When you are held, you are secure, even when everything else feels unsteady. How often do we try to hold life together on our own? We grasp tightly, to control, to manage, to fix. Our hands grow tired. Our grip slips. And we wonder why peace escapes us. But the soul was never meant to carry what only divine hands can hold. There is rest in surrender. There is peace in placing it all, your worries, your hopes, your future, into the hands of the Shepherd. Let Him hold your heart tonight. Let Him carry what's too heavy for you. Let His hands be your hiding place. Scripture speaks again and again of the hands of God. Humble yourselves under the mighty hand of God, that He may lift you up in due time. Cast all your anxiety on Him because He cares for you. 1 Peter 5 verses 6 to 7. What mighty hands! What tender care! Mighty to lift, gentle to carry. His hands are mighty, not just in power, but in purpose. He lifts you at the right time. He holds you in the right way. And what's more, He doesn't just carry you. He carves you into His very being. See, I have engraved you on the palms of my hands. Isaiah 49 verse 16. What love is this? That your name is not merely remembered, but etched into the hands of eternity. You are not forgotten. You are not one among many. You are engraved, permanently, intimately, on His hands. Not penciled in. Not written lightly. Engraved. Cut into the very fabric of His care. Even when you feel invisible, you are held in plain sight by heaven. Even when you feel unworthy, He calls you His own. You may feel like your life is slipping through your fingers, but you are not slipping through His. He holds you when grief floods your soul. He holds you when life takes unexpected turns. He holds you in moments of joy and in depths of sorrow. Even now, this very moment, His hands are beneath you. And they are not idle. His hands guide. His hands restore. His hands bless. His hands protect. His hands lift the weary and heal the wounded. His hands anoint your head with oil and prepare a table before you. Think of the hands of the shepherd in Psalm 23. Hands that gently lead beside still waters. Hands that restore your soul when it is weary from the journey. Hands that comfort you even in the valley of death's shadow. These are the hands you're in. You are not in the hands of fate. You are not in the hands of this economy. You are not in the hands of anxiety or sorrow or circumstance. You are in God's hands. What could be more secure? Even when life does not go how you hoped, His hand has not slipped. Even when prayers seem unanswered, His hold has not weakened. Even when you cannot feel Him, His hands still surround you. Underneath are the everlasting arms. Deuteronomy 33 verse 27. There is no bottom you can fall to where His arms won't catch you. There is no depth you can descend to that His reach cannot find you. Everlasting arms. Eternal grip. Unshakable security. And when this life is over, when all the days are spent, he will still be holding you. And he will carry you home. This is the shepherd's promise. I give them eternal life, and they shall never perish. This holding is not temporary. It does not expire when the season changes. It does not falter when your strength fades. You are held forever. When storms rise, he does not let go. When doubts swirl, he does not let go. When your faith flickers like a weak flame, his hands shelter the flame. You are not too fragile for him. You are not too complicated. You are not too far gone. You are held in grace, wrapped in mercy, shielded by love. So breathe. You don't need to fight for a place in his hands. You already have it. You don't need to prove your worth to stay there. You were bought with a price. You don't need to perform to be secure. You were chosen before you could earn a thing. You are held forever by hands that never fail. Let that truth quiet your heart tonight. Let it wrap around you like a warm blanket in the cold night. Let it sing peace over your restless mind. Let it carry you through this life, and all the way into the next. You are held in his hands. And nothing, absolutely nothing, can take you out of them. The God who sees you, Genesis 16. There is a kind of pain that hides quietly behind a smile. A kind of ache that walks silently through the day, unnoticed by most, yet echoing loudly within. There is a kind of loneliness that no crowd can fix. And there are moments, deep moments, where the heart wonders, does anyone see me? Not just my presence in a room, but the ache behind my eyes, the questions behind my silence, the weight I carry, though no one knows. In those moments, the soul longs not for answers first, but for acknowledgement. To be seen, to be known, to not be invisible in this vast, noisy world. And it is here, right here, that the God of all comfort steps in with gentle majesty and whispers, I see you. He doesn't just see from a distance. He sees intimately. He sees fully. He sees with compassion, not condemnation. In Genesis 16, we find a woman named Hagar, an overlooked figure in a story dominated by others. She was a servant, a foreigner, caught in a situation she did not choose, treated harshly, and pushed aside. When life became unbearable, she ran into the wilderness, alone, weary, afraid. But she was not hidden from heaven. The angel of the Lord found her. Not by accident. Not by chance. He found her intentionally, because God had his eyes on her the whole time. And what did he say? Hagar, servant of Sarai, where have you come from, and where are you going? He called her by name. He acknowledged her role. He met her in her confusion, in her pain, in her displacement. And there, in the middle of the desert, where no one else would have looked, God saw her. And she knew it. She named him El Roi, the God who sees me. Oh, what comfort this brings to the weary soul. He is not just the God of kings and prophets. He is the God of the unseen, the unheard, the unnoticed. He is El Roi, the one who sees you in the shadows, who sees your struggle when no one else does, who sees your tears before they fall, who sees the heartbreak you carry quietly, who sees the endurance behind your silence, who sees not only your face in the crowd, but your soul beneath the surface. And he does not see with detached observation. He sees with tender attention. He sees with a heart that draws near, not away. Perhaps today you feel like Hagar, lost in a wilderness of confusion, grief, or feeling cast aside. Perhaps others have misunderstood you. Perhaps your efforts go unnoticed. Perhaps your pain goes unspoken. But you are not forgotten. You are not unseen. You are not abandoned in this desert. El Roi sees you. He sees you when you cry into your pillow late at night. He sees you when you carry burdens you don't have the words to explain. He sees you when you keep going, even when everything inside you feels tired. He sees you when you serve in silence, when you give without recognition, when you love without applause. His eyes are not distracted. His gaze is not limited. His eyes are on you, not in judgment, but in gentle knowing. The world may overlook you. People may misunderstand you. Even those closest to you may not fully grasp what you're walking through. But there is one whose eyes never miss a moment of your story. one who watches over you, not as a distant observer, but as a shepherd watches his sheep, as a father watches his child, as a lover watches the one he cherishes. You are seen not just in your activity, but in your stillness, not just in your victories, but in your valleys, not just in your laughter, but in your sorrow. And in that sacred seeing, there is healing. To be seen by God is to be held. To be seen by God is to be known in the deepest place. To be seen by God is to be comforted in the very core of who you are. There are seasons when we don't even know what to pray, when we cannot articulate what we feel, when our strength is faint and our clarity is gone. And even then, El Roi sees. When your soul is quiet, his gaze is not. When your voice trembles, his care does not. When you feel unseen, his eyes are still on you. The one who saw Hagar in the wilderness sees you in yours. The one who called her by name calls you by yours. The one who met her in the desert will meet you right where you are. Not when you fix everything. Not when you prove yourself. Not when you pull yourself together. Right here. Right now. As you are. You don't have to strive to be seen. You don't have to fight for visibility with him. He sees you fully and loves you wholly. Let this truth rest in your spirit like a gentle rain over dry soil. You are not forgotten. You are not invisible. You are not passed over. El Roi sees you, and he sees you with unwavering love. When no one else claps for your quiet obedience, he sees it. When no one else notices your small acts of kindness, he treasures them. When no one else hears the whispered prayers from your heart, he does. This is not just theological comfort, it is relational intimacy. You are in the gaze of a God who cares. His eyes are not scanning for your flaws. His eyes are filled with compassion. He sees not just what you do, but why you do it. He sees your motive, your longing, your ache. He sees what you've lost. He sees what you're hoping for. He sees what you've carried silently for years. And he sees your future. The same God who met Hagar in her confusion also spoke hope over her future. He didn't just see where she was, he spoke to where she was going. You are not just seen, you are guided. You are not just visible, you are led. Even when you can't see the road ahead, his vision for you is clear. Even when your path feels uncertain, his hand is sure. He sees you, and he shepherds you. And he walks beside you, not with a distant stare, but with intimate nearness. You don't need to be afraid in the wilderness anymore. You are seen. You are known. You are loved. You are held in the gaze of El Roi. And when the desert becomes long, when the days stretch into weeks, and the silence feels endless, when it seems like nothing is changing and the weight remains the same, still, El Roi sees you. You see, God's seeing is not passive. It is purposeful. It is powerful. His seeing is an act of love. It's a gaze that carries healing, a presence that carries peace, and a vision that holds your future even when yours feels blurred by tears. Sometimes, we think if we're not doing something visible or extraordinary, then perhaps we are out of view. But God's eyes do not measure value by public stage or private struggle. He does not rank worth by performance. He treasures the quiet, faithful soul who walks with him unseen by man, but cherished by heaven. He sees the mother who prays in the still hours of the night, weary yet steady. He sees the caregiver who shows up each day in silence, pouring love into tired hands. He sees the student who battles unseen anxiety, still trying, still rising. He sees the elderly soul who feels forgotten by the world but is known by heaven. He sees the grieving heart who smiles through sorrow, loving others even while hurting. He sees you. And not only does he see, you are safe in what he sees. In a world where being seen often comes with judgment, performance, or comparison, the vision of God is different. It is healing. It is holy. It wraps around your soul like a warm blanket on a winter night, whispering, "You don't have to prove yourself here. You are seen not for who you should be, but for who you are. You are not measured, you are embraced." And in this kind of seeing, you find rest. There is no striving in the eyes of God. There is only mercy. There is only grace. There is only love that watches you, not to weigh your worth, but to surround you in belonging. Hagar named the place of her encounter Bir Lahai Roi, the well of the living one who sees me. And friend, you too have a well in your wilderness. You too have a place where grace meets you, where mercy finds you, where the water of divine presence refreshes you. You may not be able to change your circumstance overnight. You may not be able to control others' actions or erase the history you carry. But you can return again and again to this sacred place, the place where you are seen by God. Let this well spring up in you tonight. Let your heart drink deep from this truth. You are seen. You are valued. You are held. You are never invisible in the kingdom of God. Even when your steps falter, His eyes do not look away. Even when your faith feels faint, His attention never drifts. Even when you feel forgotten by people, you are remembered by God. The God who sees you also surrounds you. He is before you, behind you, beside you. His loving kindness encircles your every breath. There are no forgotten prayers with God. No overlooked offerings. No unseen tears. Each moment you've whispered in faith is known. Each tear you've wept in secret is stored. Each act of love you've offered in obscurity is treasured in eternity. And more than that, He sees the person you're becoming. He sees the courage being forged in the fire. He sees the hope still flickering within your soul. He sees the strength hidden in your surrender. He sees the beauty rising from your ashes. He sees the story still unfolding in you, and He delights in the work He's doing, even when you don't see it yourself. So tonight, if your heart is weary, if your soul feels tucked away in a desert of uncertainty, if you've wondered whether you're truly seen or if your life has faded into the background, let the voice of El Roi rise gently in your spirit again. I see you. I know you. I love you. And if you feel like no one else understands, know that He does. If you feel like no one else listens, know that He does. If you feel like no one else is aware of the depth of your pain, know that He is. You are not lost in the wilderness. You are not wandering alone. You are not overlooked by heaven. The God who saw Hagar, the God who walked with her, who comforted her, who gave her hope for the road ahead, He is the same today. He is El Roi, the God who sees you in your story, in your wilderness, in your journey. And He is with you every step of the way. So let your soul exhale tonight. Let the burdens settle gently into the hands of the one who knows. Let your heart be comforted, not by circumstances, but by presence, by divine nearness, by holy awareness. You are not invisible. You are not forgotten. You are seen. You are loved. You are chosen. And in His gaze, you will find peace. Sleep now under the eyes of El Roi, the God who sees you, and who never stops watching over you in love. Amen. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Psalm 23 verse 5. There is a peace that transcends understanding, a stillness that does not rely on silence, a comfort that settles not in the absence of trouble, but in the presence of God. And tonight, beloved soul, we sit at the edge of that mystery. A table in the midst of the storm, not after it. A feast laid out while enemies surround, not when they are gone. A resting place right in the battlefield of life. How tender is the shepherd's heart! How lavish is his love that he would prepare a table, not in a hidden valley, but in the sight of adversity, not in secrecy, but in the open, not in escape, but in assurance. This is not just provision. This is proclamation. This table speaks. It declares, you belong here. It whispers, you are honored, even while battles rage. It sings, you are not forsaken, even when fear prowls near. Imagine the scene. The clamor of opposition echoing on every side. The looming shadows of uncertainty and pain. The voices of accusation, the murmurs of doubt. And yet, right in the middle of it all, God spreads a table. A table of peace in a world of pressure. A table of joy in a world of sorrow. A table of belonging in a world of rejection. He anoints your head with oil. He fills your cup to overflowing. Not after the war has ended, but while it still swirls. This is the shepherd's way. To nourish you in the valley. To honor you in the midst of dishonor. To clothe you in love where shame once lingered. To steady your soul not by removing enemies, but by lifting your eyes. Because the table is not about the enemies, it's about Him. It's about the host. The one who sees you. The one who tends to you. The one who sits with you in holy fellowship even while trouble watches from the shadows. Can you hear the invitation tonight? Can you feel the gentle pull toward that sacred table? Come and sit. Come and rest your soul. The shepherd has prepared this place for you, not once the noise quiets, but here, now, in the thick of it. Your circumstances may not yet change, but your posture can. Your burdens may still press heavy, but your heart can find reprieve in His presence. Let the table minister to your soul tonight. Let the oil of peace run gently over the places that ache. Let the overflowing cup remind you, you are not forgotten, you are not lacking, you are not alone. At this table, the shepherd whispers peace over your fears. He lays out bread of strength when you feel weak. He pours the wine of joy when sorrow still lingers. He serves you with gentleness and speaks dignity over your weary heart. And the enemies, they cannot touch this peace. They cannot steal this grace. They can only watch in silence as your soul is nourished by divine love. Because when God prepares the table, no one can remove your seat. No opposition can undo the invitation. No accuser can revoke the blessing. You are not here by chance. You are here by choice. Chosen by Him. Welcomed by Him. Loved by Him. So don't let fear keep you from the table. Don't let shame make you hesitate. Don't let the presence of enemies cause you to turn away from the presence of God. He has made this place for you. He has drawn you in with cords of love. He has set the feast not merely for your survival, but for your flourishing. Even here. Even now. And as you sit, something sacred begins to unfold. Your soul remembers who you are. Your heart softens in the warmth of His nearness. The noise fades as your gaze fixes on His face. The table becomes a sanctuary, a place of healing, a place of realignment, a place where identity is restored and trust is rekindled. You are not just eating bread, you are being rebuilt. You are not just drinking wine, you are being renewed. You are not just sitting at a table, you are sitting in the presence of love Himself. And you begin to realize, this table is not temporary. This peace is not fleeting. This communion is not seasonal. It is a continual invitation into deeper intimacy, even as the world shakes. So stay. Let the shepherd pour again. Let Him speak again. Let Him serve you with His tender mercy and wrap your soul in quiet strength. Let the enemies witness what they can never take. Your peace in the presence of Christ. Your joy in the midst of sorrow. Your security in the shadow of His wings. This is your portion. This is your inheritance. This is the table of the shepherd. And you are His honored guest. The table remains. It has not vanished with the changing wind. It has not been removed as the shadows lengthen. It stands, steadfast, like a banner of grace planted in hostile ground. The shepherd has not hurried the moment. He is not in haste. He does not rush communion. He is not unsettled by the noise beyond the table's edge. He lingers. And oh, how beautiful it is! That God Himself lingers with you. What a sacred mystery! That while the world swirls, heaven draws near to dine with you. You are not merely passing through this moment, you are meant to dwell here. Not in the chaos, but in communion. Not in turmoil, but in trust. Not in fear, but in fellowship. The enemies may still be present, but so is the shepherd. And His presence redefines the battlefield. Yes, there are voices that try to steal your peace. But the voice of the shepherd is stronger. Yes, there are forces that try to undermine your rest. But the hands of the shepherd are gentler. Yes, there is conflict at the edges. But in the center, there is a table of peace. And you, beloved, are seated there. Not standing in defense. Not pacing in worry. Not hiding in fear. But seated, in rest, in trust, in stillness. Because to sit is to surrender. To sit is to say, my safety is not in my strength, but in His presence. The shepherd anoints your head with oil again. It is not merely a ritual. It is a declaration. The oil says, you are mine. The oil says, "You are cherished." The oil says, "You are set apart even in a world that tries to break you down." And the oil soothes every bruise the journey has left behind. It heals the places where sorrow has cut deep. It brings fragrance where bitterness once tried to take root. You begin to feel it now. The shift from striving to abiding. The gentle uncoiling of your soul in the presence of divine affection. This is the shepherd's table. And every moment here is sacred. You do not need to earn this seat. You do not need to prove yourself worthy of this rest. You do not need to battle to remain here, because He is the one who prepared it. He is the one who invited you. He is the one who makes your cup overflow. And oh, that cup! Do you see it? Do you feel it rising again? Your joy replenishing. Your strength returning. Your hope awakening. Because the shepherd never pours with hesitation. He pours until the cup spills over. Until your soul is drenched in goodness again. It is a cup of mercy. A cup of delight. A cup of peace that no storm can shake. And even now, while enemies may still glance from a distance, they cannot touch what God has poured into your spirit. They can only witness your joy. They can only observe your rest. They can only watch the feast they were never invited to. Because the shepherd does not feed fear. He feeds your faith. He doesn't cater to anxiety. He comforts your soul. He doesn't consult your enemies. He anoints your identity. And as you sit at this table, you begin to see it more clearly. This table is not only a place of rest. It is a place of transformation. Here, your heart is made strong again. Here, your mind is renewed. Here, your soul is washed in peace and clothed in promise. Because every meal with the shepherd is more than food. It is healing. It is communion. It is restoration of everything the world tried to take from you. And even as you sit, you begin to realize, this table is also preparation. You are being fed not just to be comforted, but to be strengthened for what lies ahead. You are being poured into so you can pour out. You are being filled so you can walk with fullness again. You are being nourished so you can rise not with fear, but with faith. And yet, there is no rush here. No pressure to leave the table too soon. The shepherd lets you linger. He lets you breathe. He lets you weep if needed. He lets you simply be. There is no shame at this table. There is no judgment here. Only the quiet, steady love of the one who knows every ache and still calls you beloved. He knows what you carry. He knows what you've lost. He knows the fears you cannot always name. And still, He spreads this table. Still, He anoints. Still, He pours. Because His love does not waver with the storm. His peace does not depend on your perfection. His mercy does not run dry when your strength does. This is the shepherd's way. Steadfast, gentle, abundant. And you, dear one, are safe here. So rest. Let the shepherd feed your spirit. Let him speak peace to every trembling corner of your soul. Let this table remind you. You are not abandoned. You are not defeated. You are not forgotten. You are His, fully, completely, eternally. And that alone is enough to silence every fear. A table in the presence of my enemies, Psalm 23. The table remains, and so does the shepherd. You've sat with him long enough now to know, this is not just a moment, it's a message. Not just a pause, but a promise. Not just provision, but presence. It's not merely about what's on the table, but who is at the table with you. And the one who sits with you is not distant, not aloof, not indifferent to your pain. He is near, closer than your breath. He sits not just as shepherd, but as friend, as defender, as host, as healer. What kind of love is this? That invites you to feast in the face of fear? That spreads abundance where you expected scarcity? That offers peace where you expected pressure? Only divine love could do such a thing. Only the Lord who knows you intimately, who formed you in your mother's womb and counts every tear you've cried, could prepare a table like this, in a place like this, with enemies still present and hope still rising. You look around and realize, the enemies are not gone, but they are powerless. The threat remains in form, but not in force. Because what has power is not what's outside you, it's what's been poured into you. And what has been poured into you is no small thing. It is mercy that reaches the depths. It is grace that meets you at your lowest. It is joy that returns even after a season of weeping. And above all, it is the assurance that you are never forsaken. This table declares a truth that echoing winds cannot erase. You are held by the God of the feast. Even in the presence of the valley, you are not valley-bound. Even in the shadow of your enemies, you are not shadowed in despair. Even when surrounded, you are not surrendered, because the shepherd surrounds you. Do you feel it now, beloved? The security of being known, the gentleness of being loved, the stillness of being safe in the presence of the Almighty. This is what it means to dwell in divine companionship. To feast not only for nourishment, but for nearness. To be fed not only for strength, but for the sweetness of communion. The shepherd has made it clear, you were never meant to live in fear. You were never meant to eat in secret, hiding behind your burdens. You were meant to dine boldly at the table he prepares. Because when he sets the table, fear must take a seat far away. When he anoints your head, shame cannot cling to you. When he fills your cup, worry has no room to pour its poison. And when he speaks over you, he speaks not condemnation, but compassion. So lift your eyes now. Let your soul remember what's true. You are not the sum of your enemies. You are not the sound of your past. You are not the voice of your fears. You are the guest of the King. You are the beloved of the Shepherd. You are the one he chose to feast with, right here, right now, in the midst of it all. And this table, it is a prophecy of what is still to come. Because if he prepares a table for you now, how much more glorious will the eternal banquet be? This moment is but a foretaste of heaven's feast, where there will be no more enemies, no more tears, no more valleys. And yet even now, the shepherd does not wait for heaven to lavish his love. He meets you here, in this room, in this hour, in this moment of quiet surrender. And he says again, in the gentlest voice, I am with you. I have not left you. I will sustain you. I will defend you. I will never stop preparing the table for you. So rest, dear soul. Lay down your burdens at his feet. Let your spirit eat deeply of his peace. Let your heart be filled again. Let the oil of joy drip down your soul, soaking every place that once felt barren. Let the overflow of mercy cover every memory of pain. Let the light of this communion silence every whisper of fear. Because even in the presence of enemies, you are dining with the Prince of Peace. And at his table, you will never go hungry. At his table, you will never be alone. At his table, you are safe forever. So rise now, not in fear, but in fullness. Not in anxiety, but in assurance. Not in weakness, but in wonder. You are walking forward from the table with oil on your head, peace in your soul, and a shepherd beside you who never leaves your side. Goodness and mercy will follow you, not just today, but all the days of your life. And one day, beyond all this, you will sit again at another table, an everlasting table, in the house of the Lord, forever. But until then, feast here, rest here, dwell in the goodness of the one who prepares a table in the presence of every fear, and turns it into a sanctuary of peace. Amen. The heart God heals, Psalm 34 verse 18 and Psalm 147 verse 3. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. Psalm 34 verse 18. He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. Psalm 147 verse 3. There is something sacred about a heart that has been broken. Not because pain is holy in itself, but because pain, when touched by the hands of the healer, becomes a place of encounter. A place where heaven stoops low and the presence of God draws close. Where the Father who formed your soul gently gathers the shattered pieces of what was once whole, and with tenderness, begins to restore what was torn. This is the promise that echoes through Scripture, like a soft melody in the night. He is near to the broken-hearted. He does not stand aloof in the sky, untouched by human pain. He does not merely observe grief from a distance. He comes near. He bends low. He walks into the ache and sits beside it. He kneels where tears have fallen. He holds the weary soul that trembles beneath the weight of sorrow. He comes not only to witness your wounds, but to heal them. Sometimes the world moves too quickly past pain. It hands out temporary comforts, shallow reassurances, and thin distractions to quiet the soul. But the Lord, He does not bypass your brokenness. He does not silence your grief or rush you through it. He enters into it fully. He lingers with you in the ache. He weeps when you weep. And when all strength is gone, He is the strength beneath your sighs. Do you know what it means for God to be near? Not just as a thought or a concept, but as a presence that surrounds you, fills you, holds you in the dark. It means that when your spirit is crushed, He does not wait until you feel better to draw close. He is already close. Closer than your next breath. Closer than the pain you cannot explain. Closer than the tears you haven't yet cried. And not only is He near, He heals. He binds up wounds, gently and patiently. He does not shame you for being broken. He does not scold you for being fragile. He sees the places you've hidden. He knows the hurts you've carried in silence. And still, He moves toward you. Still, He reaches for you with hands that do not bruise, but bless. With a voice that does not wound, but whispers hope into the hollows of your soul. There is no wound so deep that His love cannot reach it. No pain so old that His touch cannot redeem it. No story so shattered that He cannot write grace into every torn page. He is the God who restores the heart, not to what it used to be, but to something stronger, softer, more whole than before. Maybe you've felt forgotten. Maybe the pain has lingered longer than you expected. Maybe the tears come without warning, and the nights feel heavier than words can express. But still, He is near. Still, He is healing. Still, He is binding up every wound with His faithful hands. There is beauty even here, in the in-between. There is tenderness in the waiting. There is sacred ground beneath your sorrow, because God walks there with you. Every sigh is seen. Every ache is known. Every wound is met with His mercy. He will not leave you here. He will walk you through this valley, and one day, yes, one day, this broken place will bloom again with joy. But even before that day comes, you can rest in this truth. He is near now. He is healing now. He is binding you back together now. Let your soul breathe in that promise. Let your spirit be wrapped in it like a soft covering on a cold night. You are not alone in your brokenness. You are not forgotten in your grief. You are held, known, and deeply loved by the God who heals. The journey may not be quick. Healing may not come in a single moment. But it will come. Slowly, gently, like sunlight warming the frostbitten ground. Like a tender hand brushing away tears. Like a song rising softly from silence. This is what His love does. This is who He is. This is the heart of the one who binds up the broken-hearted and makes beauty from every bruise. There are some sorrows in life that language cannot fully hold. Griefs too heavy for words. Wounds so silent, they slip past even the most eloquent prayers. And yet, the Lord hears them. He hears what you cannot say. He knows the ache you cannot describe. He understands every unspoken sigh and every tear that slips down your cheek without a sound. Because He is not a distant God. He is the God who comes close. There is no sorrow that escapes His notice. No pain too small for His compassion. No heartbreak too messy for His healing hands. He does not ask you to put yourself back together before He comes near. He draws near because you are broken, not in spite of it. He steps into your pain, not with cold remedies, but with warmth, tenderness, and a healing presence that wraps around you like a gentle embrace in the night. His nearness is not theoretical, it is experiential. You may not always feel it, but it is constant. Like the air around you. Like the heartbeat in your chest. It is not always loud. It is not always dramatic. But it is always there. Steady. Sure. Soft and strong at the same time. And in that holy nearness, healing begins. You may not see it happening all at once. Healing rarely unfolds in grand moments. It happens in whispers. In stillness. In the hidden places where no one else sees. It happens in the way your soul breathes a little deeper today than it did yesterday. In the quiet strength that rises again after another night of tears. In the way peace returns slowly, like the tide, not crashing in all at once, but inching forward, washing over pain with mercy. The world says, "Move on. Be strong. Get over it." But Jesus says, "Come to me. Rest. Be still. I will carry you." And carry you, he does. When you cannot walk, he walks for you. When you cannot speak, he intercedes for you. When you cannot lift your head, he lifts your soul. He does not tire of your need. He does not grow weary of your sorrow. He is endlessly patient, infinitely kind, deeply faithful. This is who he is, the one who gently binds the wounds of the broken-hearted. The hands that formed galaxies are the same hands that now reach for your heart, not to judge, but to heal. Not to scold your fragility, but to hold it. To cradle your pain in the same hands that were once pierced for your sake. The hands that bore nails now bandage wounds. The hands that bore the cross now lift the crushed. His healing is not a rush, it is a rhythm. A gentle rhythm of grace, unfolding across days and weeks, months and years. He restores not only what was broken but what was forgotten. He reawakens dreams long buried beneath grief. He rekindles hope where despair once ruled. He rebuilds from ruins with patience and beauty. You do not need to perform for his love. You do not need to prove your worthiness to be healed. You simply need to come. Come with your wounds, your weariness, your silence, your ache. Come just as you are, and you will find him already waiting, already reaching, already moving with compassion. There is no expiration date on his comfort, no limit to his mercy. He will hold you as long as it takes. He will carry you as far as you need. He is not looking for perfect hearts. He is seeking the broken ones, the weary ones, the hearts that tremble in the dark and wonder if healing will ever come. It will. You may not feel it yet. You may not see it yet. But healing is already unfolding within you. Because his presence is your healing. His nearness is your restoration. And every moment you lean into him, you are leaning into recovery. Every breath you whisper in his direction is a step toward wholeness. He binds the broken. He blesses the crushed. He restores what life has shattered. And not only does he heal, you must know this, he does so with purpose. He doesn't just patch you up and send you on your way. He rebuilds with vision. He restores with intention. He brings beauty out of your brokenness, not in spite of it, but through it. Your healed heart will not be the same as it was before. It will be deeper, softer, wiser, stronger, more tender toward others who suffer, more attuned to the pain of the world, more filled with grace. That is what God does with our wounds. He does not waste them. He transforms them into vessels of compassion. Your healed heart will be a sanctuary for others, a place where the hurting can come and find hope again, a well from which others may drink and be restored. Because what God heals, he also sends. What he restores, he also anoints. You are not just being healed for your own comfort, you are being healed to become a healing presence for others. Your scars will one day speak stories of mercy. Your testimony will shine with the radiance of grace. Your life will become a living witness of the God who heals broken hearts. So do not despise your process. Do not rush your restoration. Let it unfold. Let it breathe. Let it bloom in its own time. Healing is not a destination. It is a holy journey. A sacred walk with the one who holds your heart, your tears, your story, and your future in his hands. And he will finish what he started in you. There is something sacred about a heart that has walked through pain and still chooses to love. Something holy in the soul that has tasted sorrow, yet still reaches for joy. And that is what God is forming in you, a heart that has been touched by heaven in the midst of earth's ache. A heart softened, not hardened, by pain. A heart that carries a deep tenderness, a fierce compassion, and an unshakable peace because it knows the one who heals. And when he heals you, he also teaches you how to walk in that healing. He doesn't just mend your wounds, he teaches your heart a new rhythm. The rhythm of grace. The rhythm of trust. The rhythm of walking by faith, not fear. You begin to move differently through the world. You begin to carry peace in places that once held panic. You begin to respond with gentleness in places that once flared with defensiveness. You begin to speak life where before there was silence or despair. This is how healing reveals itself, not always in grand gestures, but in the small, sacred shifts of your spirit. In the way you begin to breathe more freely. The way you begin to forgive more quickly. The way you no longer carry yesterday's pain into today's conversations. Healing is subtle, but it is powerful. And as it unfolds in you, it becomes unmistakable. God is not only binding your brokenness, He is restoring your identity. He is reminding you of who you are in Him. Pain often distorts your reflection. Grief clouds your view. But in His presence, clarity returns. You begin to remember. You are loved. You are chosen. You are held. You are not defined by what broke you. You are defined by who heals you. Your value has not diminished in your season of brokenness. The cracks in your heart do not lessen your worth. If anything, they become places where His light shines through even more clearly. You are not discarded. You are not forgotten. You are not disqualified. You are a vessel of grace, being shaped by the hands of the potter, refined by fire, but never abandoned in the furnace. He is working something glorious in your life, even through the ashes. And one day, one day, you will look back and see it clearly. You will see how He walked with you through the valley. How He comforted you in the shadows. How He whispered strength when you had none left. You will look at the places that once hurt the most and see how they have become altars of remembrance, testimonies of His faithfulness. What once was your wound will become your witness. What once was your pain will become your praise. That's how God works. He does not waste your suffering. He redeems it. He sanctifies it. He weaves it into your story with precision and purpose. And He turns it into something beautiful, not because the pain was beautiful, but because His presence in it was. Because He is the God who enters pain, not to validate it, but to transform it. He is the God who kneels beside you in the dust, lifts your face, and breathes hope again into your weary soul. Do not underestimate what He is doing in this season. Healing may not feel dramatic. It may not look impressive to others. But heaven sees it. Heaven rejoices over every quiet step forward you take. Heaven celebrates every tear that falls in surrender, every moment you choose to trust again, every time you pick up your hope and carry it into another day. You are healing even when it doesn't feel like it. You are growing even when you cannot see it. You are being held even when you cannot sense it. That's the promise of God, not just that He heals, but that He walks with you in every step toward wholeness. You are never alone in your recovery, never abandoned in your rebuilding, never left behind in your restoration. Let these words sink in deep. The Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed in spirit. He does not leave you in pieces. He does not walk past your pain. He leans in. He binds. He saves. He rebuilds. Let this truth anchor your soul. He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. Not just once, but continually, daily, tenderly, faithfully. He is always healing, always restoring, always working beneath the surface, even when you don't feel the shift. So breathe, beloved heart. Rest in His care. Release the weight you've carried for too long. You are not responsible to fix yourself. You are not expected to carry your sorrow alone. The shepherd is near. The healer is here. And He holds you with everlasting arms. You are safe in His hands. You are precious in His sight. You are being made whole, day by day, breath by breath, grace upon grace. And soon, joy will rise again. Not just a fleeting happiness, but a deep, unshakable joy that springs from healing. A joy that knows sorrow but chooses hope. A joy that remembers pain but radiates peace. A joy that is not dependent on circumstances, but rooted in the goodness of the God who heals. Yes, your heart may have been wounded, but your story is not over. Your soul may have walked through the fire, but you are not consumed. You are becoming whole again. You are rising again. You are walking in the healing that only heaven can give. And that healing, it will echo. It will echo into your relationships, into your purpose, into your future. It will echo into the lives of others, bringing comfort to the grieving, hope to the discouraged, and peace to the anxious. Your healing will become a fountain of living water to others. A testimony that whispers through the ages, there is a God who heals. And He healed me. So take heart, beloved. The mender of souls walks with you. The binder of wounds covers you. The Comforter sings over you. And the Healer is not done with you yet. You are being held. You are being restored. You are being healed. The heart God heals will never be the same. It will be even more beautiful than before. Amen. The anchor of hope, Hebrews 6 verse 19. We have this hope as an anchor for the soul, firm and secure. There are moments in life when everything feels adrift. When the winds of uncertainty howl through the chambers of your heart. When the waves of sorrow crash against your spirit with relentless force. When the tides of change threaten to sweep you into a sea of despair. And yet, in the midst of it all, there is an anchor. A holy, unwavering, unshakable anchor. A sacred hope that holds you steady when everything else is shifting. A deep-rooted certainty that does not bend beneath pressure, that does not unravel with time, that does not fray in the storm. That anchor is Christ. Not merely a symbol. Not just an idea. But a living hope, an eternal promise, a refuge for the soul in every season of life. He is the one who holds your heart when life shakes your foundations. He is the one who steadies your steps when fear threatens to paralyze you. He is the one who whispers peace when your soul forgets how to breathe. And He is the one who says, "Though the winds may rage, you will not be moved. For I have anchored you in myself." Hope in Christ is not wishful thinking. It is not a fragile optimism or a naive positivity. It is not rooted in circumstances or emotions. It is rooted in the very character of God, unchanging, eternal, faithful to every word He has spoken. Hope is the thread that ties your soul to heaven's certainty. It is the cord that stretches through the veil, reaching into the throne room of God, anchoring you not in what is seen, but in what is promised. When the world tells you to despair, hope rises. When pain presses in, hope lifts your eyes. When shadows lengthen, hope shines brighter. This is why hope is called an anchor, for it holds you still when life pulls at you from every side. It grounds you when anxiety tries to carry you away. It reminds you that you are tethered to something far stronger than the storm. You are anchored not in your own strength, but in the everlasting arms of the one who cannot fail. And this anchor, it is firm and secure. Nothing can break it. No wave can loosen it. No trial can weaken it. Not even your own doubts can sever its hold. Because this hope is not based on your grip on God, it's based on His grip on you. And His hands do not slip. His promises do not falter. His love does not waver. He holds you fast. And He holds you through the waiting, through the aching, through the silent seasons, through the unanswered prayers, through the long nights where faith feels fragile and tears fall without end. Even then, especially then, this anchor holds. When you cannot see the shore, when you cannot find your footing, when you cannot feel the warmth of His presence, still you are anchored. Still you are held. Still you are known and carried and kept. Because Christ, your hope, is not moved by what you see. He is moved by who He is. His word remains. His covenant stands. His mercy flows like a river that never runs dry. Let that settle deep into your spirit. You are not drifting. You are not forgotten. You are not abandoned to the currents. You are anchored in eternal hope. And that hope does not disappoint. Not because the journey is easy, but because the one who promised is faithful. Not because storms cease quickly, but because peace is found even in the middle of them. Not because you always understand His ways, but because you trust His heart. Even if everything else fails, this anchor remains. And it's not just for you. The world is aching for something firm, something real, something secure in this shifting sea of uncertainty. People around you are grasping for anchors that can't hold, anchors of success, control, relationships, status, approval. But they only drift further, pulled by waves too strong for shallow hope. But you have something deeper, something eternal. And when they see you standing steady in the storm, they will wonder what holds you. They will ask what roots your soul. They will be drawn to the quiet peace you carry when everything else feels lost. And in that moment, you will bear witness, not to your strength, but to your anchor. Not to your resilience, but to your Redeemer. Not to your calm, but to your Christ. Let your life become a lighthouse that points others to this hope. Let your words speak of the one who secures your soul. Let your faith become a beacon of steady light in the night, reminding weary hearts that they too can be anchored. Because hope is not just for surviving the storm, it's for shining in it. It's for worshiping through the waves. It's for walking on water when the winds roar. It's for trusting even when trembling. You are not alone in your anchoring. Christ himself entered the storm before you. He walked through the tempests of betrayal, suffering, and death, and he rose with victory in his hands. And now he stands as your refuge, your stronghold, your rock, your hope that holds steady when all else is shaken. And one day, this anchor will lead you home. One day, your faith will become sight. One day, the storms will cease. One day, you will step into the harbor of eternal peace, and your soul will rest in the full light of glory. But until then, this anchor holds. Until then, this hope sustains. Until then, you press on, tethered to the one who promised never to let go. Even now, he is near. Even now, he is whispering, "I've got you. I'm holding you. And I won't let go." And that, beloved soul, that is the hope that will never fail you. The anchor of hope, Hebrews 6 verse 19. There's a sacred strength in knowing you are tethered, not to what is fleeting, but to what is eternal. You may walk through seasons where the winds grow loud and the night stretches long. But hope is not the absence of trouble, it is the calm in the middle of it. It is the steady hand upon your soul, saying, "Peace, be still," even when the storm keeps raging. This is what sets your hope apart from the world's shallow kind. The world's hope is rooted in circumstances, in the shifting sands of success, comfort, or control. But the hope of the believer, it is not rooted in what can be seen or measured. It is rooted in the invisible, in the unshakable Word of God. God's promises are not just gentle encouragements, they are ironclad anchors. When He says you are His, it is sealed in heaven. When He promises to never leave you, that word will stand long after everything else fades. When He says, "I have loved you with an everlasting love," it means forever, no expiration, no condition, no wavering. That is the foundation of your hope. And this hope does more than hold you still, it lifts you higher. It lifts your eyes above the waves. It lifts your heart above fear. It lifts your spirit above despair. It lifts your prayers above the noise of the world. It reminds you that your story is not defined by your storm. Your identity is not determined by the winds that blow against you. You are not a vessel tossed aimlessly, you are a child held securely. You are not just trying to survive, you are being strengthened, refined, and led deeper into grace. And oh, how tender the hand that holds the anchor. It is not a cold or distant hand. It is a hand that was pierced for you. A hand that carries your burdens. A hand that holds your tears. A hand that reached into the waters of death itself to raise you up into new life. This hope is personal. This anchor is alive. It is Christ Himself. Let that truth settle deep. Your hope is not an abstract concept. Your hope is a person. Your hope has a name. Your hope has scars that speak of victory and a voice that calls your name in love. And He is not just ahead of you, He is in you. He is the strength within your soul. He is the stillness within your chaos. He is the promise in your pain. Even in the silent seasons, when answers are slow and the waiting feels heavy, hope still whispers. It does not shout, it does not rush. It stays. It breathes. It reminds. It says, God is not finished. God is still working. God is still writing. Sometimes the greatest work of hope is not to move you forward quickly, but to hold you steady while God does something deeper. And oh, how sacred the stillness becomes when you know He is in it. The silence is not a void, it's a womb where something holy is being formed. The waiting is not wasted, it's where endurance grows strong, where trust becomes real, where love roots deep. Because hope teaches you to see beyond the now, to believe in the not yet, to stand in the tension of promise and patience, knowing that what God begins, He finishes. What He speaks, He performs. What He promises, He fulfills. And this hope is not only for the storm. It is for the sunrise that follows. It is for the testimony that will rise from your tears. It is for the strength that will rise from your struggle. It is for the joy that will rise from your ashes. Because God is not just anchoring you, He is preparing you. He is shaping you. He is strengthening your roots for the glory He will reveal. He is forging in you a faith that shines like gold, tested by fire, untouched by fear. And even now, while you walk through deep waters or lonely paths, this hope is your companion. It is the melody under your breath. It is the light in your eyes. It is the oil in your lamp. Let hope be the rhythm of your soul. Let it be the compass of your prayers. Let it be the gentle weight that keeps your heart grounded in truth. And when the enemy whispers lies of fear or despair, let hope rise up like a sword. Let it speak louder than your doubts. Let it remind you, my God is faithful. My God is near. My God is not finished yet. Lift your head, beloved soul. The anchor is holding. Lift your heart, because heaven is leaning in. Lift your praise, because even in this, He is worthy. You were never meant to drift aimlessly. You were never meant to be pulled under. You were made to stand, anchored in a kingdom that cannot be shaken. So hold fast, even when you feel weak, even when questions swirl, even when you can't see the way forward. Just hold, because grace is holding you stronger. Mercy is wrapping around you. Peace is guarding you. And hope is anchoring you. This is what it means to belong to Christ. Not that storms won't come, but that you are not overcome. Not that you always feel brave, but that you are never alone. Not that you always understand, but that you always have hope. So let your soul exhale. You don't have to figure it all out. You don't have to carry it all alone. You just have to rest in the truth. You are anchored. Anchored in grace. Anchored in truth. Anchored in mercy. Anchored in love. Anchored in Christ. And that, dear soul, will carry you through every season, into glory, into rest, into joy everlasting. You are anchored, and that anchor will never, ever let go. Amen. You are not forgotten. Isaiah 49 verses 14 to 16. There are moments, sacred and silent, when the heart grows weary beneath the weight of waiting. When prayers feel unanswered, and heaven seems quiet. When life unfolds in shadows, and the soul begins to whisper what it dares not say aloud. Has God forgotten me? Zion once cried this cry, the cry that echoes through centuries of human ache. The Lord has forsaken me, my Lord has forgotten me. Isaiah 49 verse 14. And perhaps you've whispered it too, not with bitterness, but with trembling honesty. In the night when tears stain the pillow. In the quiet when dreams seem distant. In the ache of loneliness, loss, or longing. That quiet question, where is He now? But the response from heaven is not silence, it is tender fire. It is the voice of the Eternal, breaking through the ache with love that does not forget. God answers not with rebuke, but with reassurance. He answers not with distance, but with nearness. And this is His answer: can a mother forget her nursing child, that she should have no compassion on the son of her womb? Even these may forget, yet I will not forget you. Behold, I have engraved you on the palms of my hands. Oh, pause here, soul. Linger in this truth. Let it wash over every lie of abandonment. Let it silence every whisper of being unseen. Let it dissolve the ache of feeling left behind. You are not forgotten. You are engraved. Engraved, not written in ink that could fade, not sketched in sand that the wind could erase, but carved into the very hands of God. Indelible. Irrevocable. Eternal. Your name, your story, your existence, etched into the holy place where love and sacrifice meet. This is not mere metaphor, it is the heart of the gospel. Hands pierced for love. Hands marked by mercy. Hands that bear your name even when your strength is gone and your faith feels thin. In His hands, you are remembered not in theory, but in covenant. Not in distance, but in devotion. You are not forgotten in your pain. You are not overlooked in your struggle. You are not unseen in your suffering. The God of all creation, El Roy, the God who sees, has His eyes upon you still. And not only His eyes, but His heart. His compassion is stirred toward you even when you can barely speak. His love reaches for you even when you feel numb. His presence surrounds you even when you can't feel it. This is the sacred paradox. that even in your most forgotten feeling moments, you are being most deeply remembered. Sometimes, being remembered by God doesn't always look like instant answers or immediate change. Sometimes it looks like strength rising in your weakness. Sometimes it looks like peace showing up in places you can't explain. Sometimes it looks like mercy wrapped around your breaking heart. And other times, it looks like His Spirit whispering gently to your soul, "I'm still here. I'm still holding you. I haven't let go." There are seasons where God seems silent, but silence is not absence. There are seasons where the way forward is hidden, but hidden is not forsaken. There are seasons where your tears outnumber your words, but not one tear falls unnoticed. In Psalm 56 verse 8, the scripture says that God puts your tears in a bottle. He keeps record of them, not because He is counting your pain against you, but because every sorrow is sacred to Him. Nothing is lost. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is forgotten. The world may overlook you, people may abandon you, circumstances may change, but heaven holds your name. And not just your name, but your wounds, your prayers, your dreams, your journey. All of it seen. All of it carried. All of it treasured. You are engraved upon my hands. What kind of love is this? What kind of God carries His people not only in His memory but in His very being? What kind of mercy inscribes you into eternity? It is the love of a shepherd who leaves the 99 to search for one. It is the heart of a father who watches for the prodigal's return. It is the compassion of a Savior who bore the cross to ensure you would never walk alone. So when the night grows heavy and the ache begins again, speak this truth to your soul: I am not forgotten. I am engraved. Let it rise like a song within you. Let it settle like oil upon your spirit. Let it hold you when nothing else makes sense. Even now, His eyes are upon you. Even now, His heart moves toward you. Even now, His Spirit is near, whispering promises that cannot be erased. You are not forgotten in the delay. You are not forgotten in the silence. You are not forgotten in the disappointment. You are not forgotten in the wilderness. You are seen. You are held. You are engraved. And that truth, deeper than pain, stronger than despair, more enduring than time, will hold your heart when nothing else can. So breathe again. Rest again. Lean again. You are not forgotten. There is a tenderness in the way God speaks to the forgotten places in our hearts. A holy gentleness that doesn't shame us for our doubts but rather embraces us in them. He does not scold the soul that wonders if he has gone silent. He draws nearer still. He comes with comfort, not condemnation. He comes with whispers of everlasting love. Sometimes we feel forgotten because we've measured our worth by what we can produce, by what others say, by how visible we are in the eyes of the world. But God does not measure us by noise or applause. He sees in secret. He values the unseen. He treasures the hidden prayers, the quiet sacrifices, the whispered hallelujahs that no one else hears. You are not forgotten when your days feel ordinary. You are not forgotten when your strength feels small. You are not forgotten when your obedience is quiet and unseen. You are not forgotten when your love is poured out in places that no one notices. God is not only the God of mountaintop miracles. He is the God of everyday mercies, the God of hidden moments, the God who counts even the hairs on your head, the God who meets you in the laundry room, the hospital corridor, the silent commute, the midnight cry. He does not lose sight of you in the crowd. He does not overlook you in the chaos. He sees you, right here, right now. The one who formed galaxies also formed your heart, and He knows its ache. The one who numbers the stars also knows your every sigh. The one who stretches the heavens is also stretching His hand toward you now, reminding you again, I have engraved you on the palms of my hands. Think of it, how deeply personal this is. Your name etched not in a ledger, not in a passing list, but on His hands. The hands that shaped creation. The hands that touched the leper. The hands that calmed the storm. The hands that broke the bread. The hands that carried the cross. The hands that were pierced for your redemption. Those same hands bear your name. And not just your name, but your story, your journey, your identity. You are not just seen. You are known. You are held. You are remembered in perfect love. Even when you forget your own worth, He does not. Even when you lose sight of the path, He does not. Even when you let go in weakness, He still holds on. Sometimes we think we need to earn God's remembrance, as though our faithfulness could buy His attention. But His love is not transactional, it's covenantal. You don't have to strive to be seen. You don't have to fight to be remembered. You already are. Fully. Completely. Eternally. And yet, how easily we forget this truth. How easily we slip into the lie that we are left behind, overlooked, unloved. That others are chosen while we are bypassed. That we are lost in the shuffle of divine purposes. But no soul in Christ is forgotten. No prayer is lost. No tear is wasted. No act of faithfulness goes unnoticed. No step in obedience is in vain. He sees. He knows. He remembers. Your story may not unfold in the timing you expected. Your path may wind through valleys you didn't choose. But none of it means you are forgotten. On the contrary, it means you are being formed, shaped, refined, grown, held. Even your wilderness is not a place of abandonment, it's a place of deeper revelation. For it was in the wilderness that God spoke tenderly to His people. It was in the desert that He provided manna and water. It was in the lonely places that His presence became unmistakably near. And so, when you find yourself there, in the space where life feels quiet, uncertain, unseen, remember, this is holy ground too. This is the place where His whispers become clearer, where His hands become your shelter, where His promises anchor your soul. Even now, in this very moment, He is with you. The God who formed you in the womb has never taken His eyes off you. The God who called you by name has never left your side. The God who redeemed you with outstretched arms still holds you close. Let your heart return to this truth again and again. You are not forgotten. Not by the passage of time. Not by the movement of others. Not by the silence of delay. Not by the ache of unanswered prayer. You are not forgotten in the places you thought He would have acted by now. You are not forgotten in the corners of your life you've tried to hide. You are not forgotten in your quiet service, your hidden labor, your unseen love. He sees you when you weep in silence. He sees you when you keep going without applause. He sees you when you choose hope again, even after disappointment. He sees you when your worship rises through brokenness. And when your own memory falters, when you forget His promises, when you lose sight of your worth, His hands still speak. His scars still declare it. You are mine. You are loved. You are remembered. So let the truth of Isaiah 49 verse 16 be your anthem. See, I have engraved you on the palms of my hands. Your walls are ever before me. Your walls, your boundaries, your burdens, your concerns, they are before Him. He doesn't just remember your name. He remembers your need. He remembers your fears. He remembers your prayers whispered in the night. He remembers your longing for peace, for healing, for purpose. And He answers, not always with immediate resolution, but always with presence. Always with mercy. Always with grace enough for today. Rest in that today, beloved. Rest in the arms of the One who remembers you perfectly. Rest in the truth that nothing about you is forgotten. Not your pain, not your promise, not your progress. You are engraved. You are known. You are loved. And that love will carry you through every season until the day your faith becomes sight and you behold the One who never let you go. Until then, walk in peace. Live as one who is remembered. Pray as one who is heard. Worship as one who is seen. And rest in the hands that will never forget you. He knows the plans. Jeremiah 29 verses 11 to 13. There is something sacred in knowing that your life is not a random scattering of moments, not a fragmented trail of events drifting without meaning. You are not walking through time unanchored. You are not wandering aimlessly through a haze of uncertainty. You are held in the hands of the One who knows the plans. Yes, He knows. When you don't, He does. When your view is clouded, His is clear. When your path seems tangled, He is weaving purpose. When you feel lost, He knows exactly where you are. When your heart questions, "What now?" He whispers, "I know." This is not a distant knowledge. It is intimate, personal, intentional, divine. The words He spoke through Jeremiah echo across the generations and reach into your life even now, For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans. Not guesses. Not options. Not vague ideas. But plans. Designed. Prepared. Sovereignly crafted. Wrapped in wisdom, saturated with love. And these plans, they are good. Not just tolerable. Not just barely enough. But good. Even when they pass through valleys. Even when they stretch across barren places. Even when they feel delayed or difficult, still, they are good. Because they come from the heart of the one who is good. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you a future and a hope. A future. A hope. A divine unfolding that stretches beyond the present moment. A story being written by the author of eternity. He sees what you cannot. He holds what you cannot grasp. He weaves beauty out of ashes and redemption out of pain. He is not reacting to your circumstances. He is reigning over them. You may feel like your life is stuck in waiting. Like your prayers are suspended in silence. Like you are walking in circles, seeing no progress. But the God who knows the plans is still at work. Even in delay, He is preparing. Even in stillness, He is moving. Even in silence, He is speaking. Your detours do not derail His purpose. Your delays do not cancel His goodness. Your disappointments do not disqualify your future. You may not understand the path, but you can trust the planner. He is not guessing His way through your story. He is guiding it with eternal wisdom. And even what the enemy meant for harm, He is already redeeming it for good. He knows how to take broken pieces and build something eternal. He knows how to take what you thought was a setback and use it as a setup for glory. He knows how to take your wilderness and turn it into a place of encounter. So if your heart is tired of not knowing, if your soul is weary from the questions, if your spirit feels stretched by the waiting, come closer. Rest your heart in this. He knows. He knows the burdens you carry. He knows the longing you've buried. He knows the prayers you've whispered through tears. He knows the dreams you've put on hold. He knows the closed doors, the unanswered questions, the what-ifs. And He is not indifferent. He is not distant. He is not uninvolved. He is present, close, faithful, working in the silence, moving in the unseen, holding your future even when you feel unsure of your present. And He doesn't just know the plans, He invites you into them, not as a passive bystander, but as a beloved participant. That's why the next verse matters so deeply. Then you will call upon me and come and pray to me, and I will listen to you. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. This is the beautiful rhythm of divine planning, relationship. Not just direction, but communion. Not just a path, but a presence. Not just guidance, but nearness. He invites you to seek Him, not just for answers, but for Himself. Not just for a plan, but for the planner. And when you do, He promises, you will find me. What a promise! What a hope! The one who holds your future is also holding your hand in the present. The one who knows your next step is walking beside you now. The one who wrote the ending of your story is whispering comfort into this chapter. So don't fear the unknown, beloved. You are not walking blindly. You are walking with a God who sees all. You are not wandering. You are being led. You are not forgotten. You are called by name. You are not aimless. You are appointed. Even when it feels like nothing is changing, He is still faithful. Even when it feels like the plan is hidden, He is still working. Even when your questions outnumber your answers, He is still good. And yes, there may be days when you feel like you've taken the wrong turn. Days when you question if you've missed it. Days when the journey feels longer than you thought. But let your heart rest in this. If your desire is to follow Him, you cannot miss His plan. If your heart is yielded to His voice, He will direct your steps. If you seek Him first, He will align your path. He does not mock your seeking. He does not abandon your questions. He meets you in them. He leads you through them. He carries you when your strength runs low. And He brings purpose to every step, even the ones that feel uncertain. So let this truth be your anchor today. He knows the plans. Let it steady your thoughts. Let it silence fear. Let it calm anxiety. Let it fill you with courage to keep going. Even when you don't feel it, He is writing your story with grace. Even when you can't trace His hand, you can trust His heart. Even when the path ahead is unclear, you can rest in the One who has already seen the end from the beginning. For He knows. And He never forgets what He's spoken over you. Sometimes the hardest part of trusting God's plans is living in the in-between. The space between the promise and the fulfillment. The space between the prayer and the answer. The space between the seed planted and the harvest revealed. In this space, faith is tested. In this space, hope is refined. In this space, the soul learns to lean not on what it sees, but on who it knows. And oh, beloved, this is the holy ground where trust is born. This is where your spirit learns to say, even here, I believe. Even in waiting. Even in uncertainty. Even in silence. Even when every emotion wrestles with doubt, your soul can whisper, but He knows. And His plans are still good. You see, God is not only a God of destinations, He is the God of the process. The shaping. The refining. The stretching. He uses every season to mold you, prepare you, deepen you. The delays are not empty, they are purposeful. The detours are not wasted, they are weaving something eternal. He is building your faith, even when it feels like everything is still. Sometimes, He allows the wilderness so that you'll learn His voice more clearly. Sometimes, He allows closed doors to lead you into divine redirection. Sometimes, He allows the unknown so that you will cling to Him and not to outcomes. He is not simply preparing things for you. He is preparing you for the things He has already ordained. And when the fullness of time comes, you'll look back and realize, He never forgot you. He never left your side. He never abandoned the blueprint of your life. He was building something beautiful beneath the surface all along. That pain that felt pointless, it will make sense. That waiting that felt unbearable, it will yield fruit. That road that felt confusing, it will become a testimony of His leading. And the joy that will come will not be shallow joy, it will be deep, rich joy. The kind that is born from trusting Him in the shadows. The kind that knows the sweetness of promises fulfilled after long nights of prayer. The kind that carries a sacred weight, because you've seen His faithfulness in the valley. So don't despise the slow seasons. Don't curse the quiet moments. Don't rush ahead in fear. Stay in step with Him. Let Him pace your heart to the rhythm of grace. Let Him walk you gently, faithfully, patiently toward what He has planned. Because here is the beautiful truth. He is not just leading you toward a good future, He is forming you into the kind of person who can carry it. He is forming your faith, so it can stand firm when the promise arrives. He is forming your character, so it can hold what He's about to place in your hands. He is forming your heart, so it can overflow with humility and gratitude when the doors open wide. And as He forms you, He invites you closer. Closer into His presence. Closer into intimacy. Closer into dependence, not on outcomes, but on Him alone. This is why He says, "Then you will call upon me and come and pray to me, and I will listen to you." What grace! What tenderness! The God of all creation bends His ear to your voice. The planner listens to your prayers. The Sovereign One welcomes your seeking. There is no distance too great, no silence too long, no wound too deep that can keep Him from meeting you when you seek Him with all your heart. This is not a shallow promise, it is a sacred invitation. A covenant of closeness. A promise that He will not hide from the hungry heart. He will not turn away from the one who seeks Him earnestly. And when you find Him, truly find Him, you'll discover that He Himself is the greatest gift. Not just the plans. Not just the blessings. But Him. His presence. His love. His peace. His nearness. That's when you realize, the journey was never just about reaching a destination, it was always about walking with Him along the way. The plan was never just about success or progress or achievement, it was about communion, trust, transformation. The deeper treasure is not merely in the outcome. The treasure is found in every moment you leaned on Him. Every time you fell to your knees and found His strength. Every hour you cried out and felt His arms around you. Every season you didn't understand, yet still chose to believe. And beloved, nothing is wasted in His plan. Not your tears. Not your questions. Not your missteps. Not even your regrets. He gathers it all, holds it all, redeems it all. He knows how to bring beauty from your broken pieces. He knows how to turn every sorrow into a seed for something greater. He knows how to turn every why into a future testimony of His wisdom and mercy. So rest in Him. Anchor your heart in this unshakable truth. He knows the plans He has for you. Let it still your soul when everything feels uncertain. Let it quiet your fears when timelines fall apart. Let it lift your eyes when hope seems distant. Let it deepen your worship when nothing makes sense. Let it carry you forward when your strength feels gone. You may not have all the answers. You may not know every step ahead. But you have Him, and He knows. He holds. He guides. He provides. So take a breath, beloved. The plan is still intact. The promise is still alive. The future is still in His hands. And in His perfect time, you will see it unfold. With beauty. With clarity. With purpose. And you will say, with tears in your eyes and joy in your heart, He knew all along. Amen. The rock beneath you, Psalm 18 verses 1-3, 31-36. I love you, O Lord, my strength. The Lord is my rock and my fortress and my deliverer. My God, my rock, in whom I take refuge. My shield, and the horn of my salvation, my stronghold. I call upon the Lord, who is worthy to be praised. And I am saved from my enemies. Psalm 18 verses 1-3. There is something steadying, something deeply anchoring, about calling God your rock. In a world that trembles, in a life that often shifts beneath your feet, there is deep peace in knowing that beneath every storm, beneath every sorrow, beneath every question, there is a rock that does not move. And this rock is not distant. He is not far off or impersonal. He is near. He is present. He is holding you, even now. You may not always feel it, but His strength surrounds you like a mountain beneath your trembling steps. You are not standing on empty promises. You are not walking on unstable ground. You are held by the firm foundation of His faithfulness, the solid ground of His word, the unshakable presence of the Most High. And when everything else feels uncertain, you can still whisper, "The Lord is my rock." Not just a rock, my rock. Not just a shelter in theory, my refuge in reality. Not just a title, my stronghold, my security, my peace. Oh, how personal that becomes when life starts shaking. When relationships falter. When finances strain. When the ground beneath your plans begins to crack. When fear tries to creep in and hope feels distant. In those moments, you don't need abstract comfort, you need a rock. And He comes near. Not only to hold you steady but to shield you, deliver you, surround you. He becomes your hiding place, your fortress, your place of strength when your own strength fails. You may feel weak, but He is not. You may feel overwhelmed, but He is never caught off guard. You may not know what tomorrow brings, but He is already in it, preparing the way. And so you can rest. You can take shelter, not in your plans, not in your abilities, not in your understanding, but in Him. His strength is not just for battle, it is for your soul. His might is not just for defeating enemies, it's for holding you in the quiet, tear-soaked spaces of your heart. He is not only your deliverer in visible victories, He is your defender in the unseen wars you fight silently. Let this truth settle deep into your soul. You are not alone, and you are not unprotected. The God who split the seas is the same one who shields your heart. The God who shook the mountains is the same one who holds your hand. The God who commands angels is the same one who wraps you in mercy. And in the shelter of this rock, you are safe. When David penned these words, he wasn't speaking from a place of ease. He had known war. He had known betrayal. He had run for his life, hidden in caves, wandered through uncertainty. But in all of that, he discovered something far more powerful than the weapons of his enemies. He discovered the steadfastness of God. And so do you. In your wilderness. In your valleys. In your lonely nights. In your waiting seasons. You discover that when everything else fails, He does not. He becomes your song. He becomes your strength. He becomes the firm ground beneath your trembling feet. And when you call on Him, He answers. Not always in the way you expect, but always in the way you need. David said, "I call upon the Lord, who is worthy to be praised, and I am saved from my enemies. There is power in your cry. Not because your voice is strong, but because the one you cry to is. He hears the faintest whisper of your soul. He responds to the groan too deep for words. And in his response, there is salvation, rescue, strength, deliverance. You don't have to figure it all out, you just have to call. You don't have to fix everything, you just have to rest in him. You don't have to fight alone, you just have to lean into the rock who fights for you. Because he is not only your shelter from the storm, he is your strength within it. And oh, how he defends you! Not always with loud displays or dramatic miracles, but often with quiet strength. With peace that defies logic. With grace that carries you hour by hour. With courage that rises inside you when you didn't think you could take another step. This is what happens when you dwell in the shadow of the Almighty. Your soul becomes unshaken even when the world quakes. And that, beloved, is what it means to have a rock beneath you. A foundation that holds. A God who remains. A God who says, when your heart grows faint, come to the rock that is higher than you. Because you will have days when your strength feels gone. You will have days when your footing slips. But those are not the end, they are the invitation. The invitation to lean deeper into him, to rest heavier upon his word, to anchor more securely in his presence. So do not fear the winds. Do not tremble at the shaking. Do not despair when the path grows rough. Because the rock beneath you does not move. He is steady when you are weary. He is faithful when you are fragile. He is immovable when everything else feels unstable. And he will not let you fall. There is something sacred about learning to lean. Something holy about resting your full weight, not on your own wisdom, not on your own resources, but on the rock that cannot be shaken. The life of faith isn't about keeping your balance by your own strength. It's about collapsing fully into the strength of the one who holds you. For who is God, but the Lord? And who is a rock, except our God? Psalm 18 verse 31. There is no one else like him. No one as steady. No one as faithful. No one as sure. The world may offer you temporary scaffolding, fleeting support that looks strong until the winds come, but only the Lord remains unshaken. He is the rock beneath your soul, beneath your story, beneath your future. Let these words wash over your heart. Who is a rock except our God? Not your circumstances. Not your success. Not your reputation. Not even your relationships. These things, as precious as they are, cannot carry the full weight of your life. They were never meant to. They shift. They change. But your God remains immovable. When all else falters, he stays. When your plans collapse, he stands firm. When your heart feels like it's crumbling under the weight of life's pressures, he lifts you and places you on higher ground. You may not always understand his ways, but you can always trust his foundation. He is not only your rock, he is your fortified rock. Not just a stone on a path, but a mighty fortress, a towering shelter, a high place of refuge carved into eternity. When fear rises, you do not need to run away, you run into the strength of your God. Psalm 18 continues. He made my feet like the feet of a deer, and set me secure on the heights. He trains my hands for war, so that my arms can bend a bow of bronze. You have given me the shield of your salvation, and your right hand supported me, and your gentleness made me great. Psalm 18 verses 33 to 35. Look at the strength he gives. Look at the security he builds in you. You are not just protected, you are equipped. He strengthens your stance. He teaches your soul to walk sure-footed, even on the steep paths of suffering. He plants confidence in your spirit, not prideful confidence in self, but quiet confidence in his presence. He makes my feet like the feet of a deer. This means that even on uneven terrain, when life feels unstable and the road ahead looks dangerous, he gives you the spiritual balance, agility, and grace to keep walking. You may have thought you couldn't make it through that valley, but you did. Why? Because his strength carried you. His stability became your own. Even when your soul was tired, his grip didn't loosen. Even when you faltered, his arms held you steady. Even when the mountain was steep and the road uncertain, he set your feet on high places. And in the process, he was training you. Training your hands for the unseen wars of faith, teaching your soul how to cling tighter, trust deeper, endure longer. Not because you're mighty, but because He is. You gave me the shield of your salvation. He doesn't just hand you tools, He surrounds you with salvation. You walk clothed in grace, covered in mercy, shielded by His righteousness. His salvation isn't just something you carry, it's something you dwell in. It's the atmosphere of your life, the covering of your days, the banner over your heart. And your right hand supported me. Don't miss the beauty of this. His right hand, the hand of power, of authority, of blessing, upholds you. That means you are never held by luck, never supported by chance. You are carried by the hand that formed the heavens. You are lifted by the one who spoke galaxies into being. You are steadied by the hand that was pierced for your redemption. And what does His support lead to? Your gentleness made me great. Ah, what a holy paradox! The power of God expressed through gentleness. The greatness of your life formed not through striving, but through His tender touch. His gentleness is not weakness, it is the strength that stoops low to lift you high. It is the quiet love that mends your broken places. It is the patient hand that shapes your soul with grace. He is your rock, and yet He is also your gentle shepherd. He is your fortress, and yet He walks softly beside you. He is your strength, and yet He leans in with tenderness, wiping tears you haven't even spoken aloud. This is your God. Steady and kind, mighty and near, powerful and personal, strong and gentle. So you can rest again, knowing the ground beneath your soul is secure. The rock is not cracking. The foundation is not shifting. The fortress has not been breached. You are safe. You are held. You are steadied. Even in the wildest storms, your footing remains because He is the ground beneath your feet. So breathe, beloved. Let the winds blow. Let the waves crash. You are not standing on sand. You are rooted in something stronger than fear, deeper than pain, higher than circumstance. You are rooted in the Rock of Ages. He is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And He is not going anywhere. Let these truths echo in your heart tonight. The Lord is your rock. The Lord is your fortress. The Lord is your deliverer. The Lord is your shield. The Lord is your salvation. The Lord is your strength. You are not abandoned. You are not forsaken. You are not without a shelter. The rock is beneath you, around you, before you, and behind you. So sleep in peace. Walk in courage. Stand in faith. And when the world grows loud, return again to the stillness of this truth. He only is my rock and my salvation, my fortress. I shall not be greatly shaken. Psalm 62 verse 2. Amen. In the shadow of His wings, Psalm 17 verses 6 to 8 and Psalm 36 verse 7. I call on you, my God, for you will answer me. Turn your ear to me and hear my prayer. Show me the wonders of your great love, you who save by your right hand those who take refuge in you from their foes. Keep me as the apple of your eye. Hide me in the shadow of your wings. Psalm 17 verses 6 to 8. How priceless is your unfailing love, O God! People take refuge in the shadow of your wings. Psalm 36 verse 7. There are places in life that are too fierce to walk through alone. There are nights that are too long, battles too heavy, wounds too deep for the strength of man to carry. And yet, over and over again in Scripture, the people of God were not called to carry the storm. They were called to find shelter under the wings of the Almighty. The psalmist speaks with a voice of deep yearning, "Hide me in the shadow of your wings." What a powerful image of nearness and safety. The wings of God, majestic, tender, divine, spread wide to cover the weary, the wounded, the seeking. It is not just protection, it is intimacy. Not just safety, but comfort. When the soul is overwhelmed, when the night presses in too tightly, God does not simply stand at a distance with solutions. He draws near with presence. He enfolds you in the warmth of His care, cradles you beneath His grace, and guards your heart with a love that does not falter. This is not poetic metaphor alone, it is truth for the crushed spirit, sanctuary for the restless soul. In the shadow of His wings, you find the gentle quiet that calms the storm within. You find the hush that silences fear, the stillness that dries your tears, the assurance that says, "You are safe. You are held. You are home. The wings of God are not like man's wings. They are not fragile feathers in the wind. They are the wings of a mighty, holy, omnipotent King. They are wide enough to cover your entire life. They are strong enough to shield you from the fiercest attack. They are soft enough to cradle your fragile heart without bruising it. And they are close enough that when you're beneath them, you can hear the heartbeat of heaven. In the shadow of his wings, you are not forgotten. You are not exposed. You are not abandoned in your vulnerability. You are seen. You are held. You are known. His covering is not seasonal, it's eternal. His shelter is not reserved for the strong, but for the seeking. And how priceless is that love! The psalmist exclaims it, not with calculation, but with awe. How priceless is your unfailing love, O God! It is not a love that wanes, not a love that withdraws when we fail. It is an unfailing love, a love that remains when all else crumbles. A love that is both shield and embrace. A love that makes refuge possible in a world that offers none. Come closer now. Picture that place in your own life, where the pressure has been relentless, where the ache has been long, where you've tried to be strong but feel like you've cracked in places no one else sees. Now hear the voice of the Father. Come, take refuge in me. He doesn't ask you to pretend the storm doesn't exist. He offers a covering in the midst of it. He doesn't ask you to carry what is too heavy. He calls you to shelter. You do not have to prove your worth to earn his wings. His wings spread because of who he is, not because of who you are. You are invited to dwell in the secret place of his presence, not because you are perfect, but because he is love. And under those wings, you breathe again. You remember who holds you. You remember that the one who shelters you is also the one who fights for you. He is both refuge and warrior. He is both gentle and mighty. He is both near and transcendent. And he bends low to hide you in the warmth of his covenant care. Even when enemies surround, even when the arrows fly by day and the shadows stretch long by night, he remains your hiding place. You are not exposed to every blow. You are not left to the mercy of the battle. You are hidden in him, covered, guarded, watched over, loved. So what do you do beneath his wings? You rest. You worship. You exhale. You lay down the weapons you've gripped in your own hands and you take hold of his peace instead. You stop running, stop striving, stop fearing, and you simply dwell. There is no safer place in all creation than the shadow of his wings. And from that place, peace begins to rise again. Hope begins to stretch like light across the horizon of your heart. Healing begins to whisper through the soul's silent aches. Even the broken places begin to mend in that holy shelter. Because under his wings, you are not only kept, you are restored. And this is your inheritance, child of God. You were not meant to live out in the open, vulnerable to every threat, alone in the wind and rain. You were meant to live sheltered, to abide in the nearness of his heart, to dwell in the covering of his wings, and to move through life anchored in his refuge. So whatever you are walking through today, come in. Draw near. Let his wings cover you again. Let your soul be quieted under the shelter of his presence. Let your heart remember, you are not just surviving. You are held. You will not be shaken. Psalm 16. I have set the Lord always before me, because he is at my right hand, I shall not be shaken. Psalm 16 verse 8. There is a stillness that does not come from silence, but from assurance. There is a calm that does not come from the absence of trouble, but from the presence of God. There is a rootedness that does not come from control, but from surrender. And this is what David knew. This is what he carried into his song in Psalm 16. He did not write from the throne alone. He wrote from the valleys. He wrote from the caves. He wrote from places of refuge where shadows danced on cold walls and the future seemed uncertain. Yet even there, he penned the words, I shall not be shaken. And how is that possible? How does one stand steady in a world where everything moves? How does one remain unmoved while the ground beneath their life trembles with unknowns, disappointments, delays, and pain? It's not because of what we hold in our hands, but because of who we set before us. I have set the Lord always before me. That is the secret of unshakable peace. Not circumstances. Not achievements. Not control. Not understanding everything. But this one thing, setting the Lord always before you, letting His presence be your compass, your anchor, your constant gaze. What you keep before you will shape what you believe within you. And when you fix your eyes on the one who never changes, you begin to walk through shifting seasons with steadiness that doesn't make sense to the world, but makes perfect sense in heaven. He is at my right hand. I shall not be shaken. This is more than a poetic phrase. It is a spiritual position. The right hand, in Scripture, is a place of strength, guidance, and honor. To say that God is at your right hand is to say that He is not distant, not passive, not detached. He is present, active, near. He is not behind you, reacting to your steps. He is beside you, leading, steadying, surrounding, and defending. And so, even when storms come, and they will, you will not be swept away. Even when losses sting, and they will, you will not be destroyed. Even when fears rise, and they will, you will not be overcome. You will not be shaken, not because life is easy, but because God is unmovable. You will not be shaken, not because you're always strong, but because His strength carries you when you cannot stand. You will not be shaken, not because you always understand the path, but because you trust the shepherd who walks beside you on it. There is a peace reserved for those who set their eyes on the Lord. A steadiness not made of flesh, but of faith. A strength not drawn from self, but from surrender. And in that posture of trust, you will discover what it means to live in rest even in battle, to walk in grace even in weakness, to stand firm even in trembling places. Because He is your portion. He is your cup. He is your chosen inheritance, as Psalm 16 reminds us. And when the Lord is your portion, you do not lack, even when life says otherwise. I bless the Lord who gives me counsel. In the night also my heart instructs me. Even in the night, yes, even in the silence of uncertainty, He whispers counsel into your heart. Even when answers seem distant, His voice is near. Even when you lie awake, anxious, He is present in the shadows, whispering peace deeper than understanding. And maybe you've walked through seasons where everything felt like it was crumbling. Maybe you've carried burdens that felt too heavy. Maybe your soul has known the trembling of unknown tomorrows. But here you are, still standing. Not because you were never shaken, but because God never let you fall. Not because you always had strength, but because He upheld you. Not because you had every answer, but because you kept setting Him before you, and that was enough. The beauty of Psalm 16 is not that David never felt fear, it's that even in fear, he chose his focus. And that's the invitation before you now, to choose where your focus will dwell. Will it dwell on the waves, or on the one who walks upon them? Will it dwell on the uncertainty, or on the one who holds all things secure? What you magnify will grow louder in your heart. But when you magnify the Lord, His peace begins to settle over every shaking place. When you dwell in His presence, the trembling loses its grip. When you abide in His counsel, confusion starts to quiet. When you trust in His right hand, your soul begins to rest. This is what it means to live unshaken, not because life is soft, but because God is solid. And sometimes, the shaking isn't meant to destroy you, it's meant to reveal the foundation you're standing on. Sometimes, God allows what is unsteady to tremble, so that what is eternal in you may rise. And when you find yourself stripped of all false strength, all human scaffolding, all shallow security, that's when you begin to see the beauty of the rock beneath your feet. The Lord Himself. The unchanging One. The faithful One. The God who steadies your soul when nothing else can. So don't be afraid of the shaking seasons. Don't despise the winds that blow. For even in those times, you are being anchored deeper into Him. And one day, you'll look back and realize, you weren't just surviving, you were being formed. You weren't just enduring, you were being rooted. You weren't just getting through it, you were learning to live unshaken. Because when the Lord is before you, no storm can steal your peace. No enemy can snatch your hope. No trial can unseat your place in His presence. Your heart can rest secure. Your soul can breathe again. You are not forgotten. You are not fragile. You are not falling apart. You are held by the One who never fails. You shall not be shaken. Even if everything around you shifts, His word will remain. Even if people come and go, His love will endure. Even if plans unravel, His purpose will stand. So rest in that truth. Let it settle into your bones. Let it echo through your thoughts. You are anchored in God. You are steady in His strength. You are kept in His nearness. And no matter what comes, you will not be shaken. There is something sacred about walking through storms and discovering that your soul has been anchored all along. Not because you never felt the wind, but because you learned who was holding you in the middle of it. And this is the heart of Psalm 16. It's not a psalm of denial, but a declaration. It is not ignorance of struggle, but intimacy with God. David wasn't untouched by trouble, but he had learned where to place his trust. I say to the Lord, "You are my Lord, I have no good apart from you." Do you hear the purity in that confession? He doesn't say, "I have no good apart from my success." He doesn't say, "I have no good apart from my safety." He doesn't say, "I have no good apart from my dreams coming true." No, he says, "I have no good apart from you." It's the language of a soul that has found its joy in the giver, not merely the gifts. A soul that has tasted something deeper than circumstance, a communion that remains steady even when everything else is fragile. Because when God becomes your portion, your inheritance, your delight, then peace no longer depends on what is happening around you. It flows from what is eternal within you. The lines have fallen for me in pleasant places. Indeed, I have a beautiful inheritance. This is the overflow of a heart rooted in God's presence. It doesn't mean every season is easy. It means that even in barren places, the soul recognizes the beauty of what God has assigned. Not because the field is full, but because the Father is faithful. When the Lord is your portion, you're no longer chasing the temporary. You're held by the eternal. And when you realize you already have the most beautiful inheritance, Him, you can walk through life with a peace that cannot be taken, a joy that does not rot, and a confidence that does not crack beneath pressure. You see, God never promised that life wouldn't shake. He promised you wouldn't. Because He never builds your security on something fragile. He builds it on Himself. And when He becomes your portion, your refuge, your confidence, you begin to see life differently. Not through the lens of fear, but through the lens of faith. Not through the grip of worry, but through the gift of worship. That's why David ends this psalm with such radiant confidence. You make known to me the path of life. In your presence there is fullness of joy. At your right hand are pleasures forevermore. Here is the crescendo. Here is the culmination of a soul that has learned to dwell in God's nearness. Joy, not in temporary relief, but in His presence. Pleasures, not in fleeting satisfaction, but at His right hand. This is the reward of those who set the Lord before them, not merely protection, but presence. Not merely safety, but sacred communion. Not merely survival, but a joy that overflows beyond circumstances. Because your joy is not tied to outcomes, it's tied to intimacy with the Father. Your peace is not anchored in certainty, it's anchored in His nearness. Your hope is not built on answers, it's built on who He is. And that's why you can walk into uncertain days with a steady heart. That's why you can face losses and not lose yourself. That's why you can endure hardship and not be hollowed out by despair. Because the one who walks beside you is greater than anything that could come against you. And His presence is the steady rhythm beneath your every breath. Even when tears fall. Even when plans fail. Even when your hands tremble. Still, your soul will not be shaken. Not because you are fearless, but because He is faithful. Not because you're untouched, but because you're upheld. Not because you're invincible, but because He is immovable. So walk forward today, not with striving, but with stillness. Not with worry, but with worship. Not with pressure to figure it all out, but with the peace that comes from knowing you are held. Held by the God who steadies the stars, and still sees you. Held by the shepherd who guides every step, and still sings over your soul. Held by the one who sits enthroned above the heavens, and yet dwells beside you in every valley. So don't fear the trembling. It will come, but it will not overcome you. Don't fear the unknown. He already stands in tomorrow. Don't fear what you cannot control. He is the one who holds all things together, including you. So declare it, whisper it, sing it if you must. I have set the Lord always before me, because He is at my right hand, I shall not be shaken. Let this be your anthem, your anchor, your quiet confidence in the chaos. You are not just surviving, you are standing. You are not just holding on, you are being held. You are not just enduring, you are rooted in the presence of the one who never fails. And you, child of God, you will not be shaken. There is a kind of love that words cannot measure. A kind of delight so divine, so tender, so full of eternal warmth, that it does not just whisper, it sings. Not with condemnation. Not with pressure. Not with shame or demand. But with melody, with joy, with a father's heart so full of affection that it overflows into song. This is the breathtaking truth Zephaniah 3 verse 17 whispers into the depths of our weary souls. The Lord your God is in your midst, a mighty one who will save. He will rejoice over you with gladness. He will quiet you by his love. He will exult over you with loud singing. Pause here. Let your heart breathe it in. The Creator of galaxies sings. The Holy One, eternal in glory, enthroned in majesty, sings. And not just in some abstract way over creation. Not just over the vast universe. He sings over you. He rejoices over you with gladness. He quiets you with his love. He exults over you with singing. Not reluctantly. Not because he has to. But because his heart is full of delight when he looks at you. What kind of God is this? What kind of king holds the universe in his hands and still notices the trembling soul curled in the shadows? What kind of father carries the weight of all creation yet takes time to sing lullabies over his beloved children? This is not a distant deity. This is not a cold, detached monarch. This is a God who draws near. A God who kneels beside your broken heart. A God who cups your face in his hands, who gathers every tear and wraps his arms around you, not only in strength, but in song. And he sings not because you've performed perfectly, but because you are his. He sings not because you've done everything right, but because you belong to him. He sings because his love is not a reward for good behavior. It is the deep, unchanging essence of who he is. And this love, this singing love, it reshapes everything. Because so often, we walk through life with voices echoing inside us that do not sing. They criticize. They condemn. They remind us of what we lack. They compare. They accuse. They replay regrets and whisper unworthiness. But the voice of God is different. The voice of God sings. And his song silences the lies. His melody melts away fear. His joy quiets the storms inside. It is the sound of a father who is not ashamed of you, who is not weary of you, who is not disappointed in you, who is not tired of loving you. It is the sound of heaven's affection breaking through the noise of a world that has tried to define your worth by what you do, how you look, or what you failed to become. But here, in the presence of the singing God, you remember the truth. You are already deeply loved, already cherished, already chosen, already delighted in, already sung over, already held in everlasting arms that do not grow weary, arms that draw you in not just with strength, but with a song. Imagine it, the God of mercy, singing lullabies over your anxious heart, the God of compassion, humming peace over your restless soul, the God of redemption, rejoicing over your return, the God of comfort, whispering love into the places where you felt forgotten. What if every night, while you sleep, his voice fills the heavens with melodies of joy over you? What if every time you doubted your worth, there was a chorus in heaven singing reminders of how beloved you truly are? What if every weary sigh you breathe is met by a song that lifts your spirit, not from within your own strength, but from the sacred nearness of your Father's voice? You see, the world sings a different song. The world sings of performance. The world sings of perfection. The world sings of beauty standards, productivity, and achievement. But the song of God is not in tune with the world. The song of God is the anthem of grace, the lullaby of mercy, the refrain of redemption, the chorus of unshakable love. And even when you don't feel it, he is still singing. Even when you don't hear it, his song continues. Even when you feel too weak to lift your own voice in praise, he surrounds you with his. Because his joy over you is not circumstantial. It is not fleeting. It is eternal. And that is why you can rest. Not because the world is quiet, but because His love quiets you. He doesn't just demand your worship, He offers His. He doesn't just wait for you to sing, He sings first. He is not looking for perfection. He is drawing near with protection. He is not scolding you. He is serenading you. He is not pushing you away. He is pulling you closer with a melody of divine tenderness. And if you listen closely, not just with your ears, but with your soul, you will hear the harmony of heaven echoing softly within the quiet places of your heart. You will hear the sound of joy that never ends, the rhythm of peace that calms every fear, the gentle notes of a Savior who knows your pain and yet rejoices over you still. Because His song is stronger than your shame. His voice is louder than your past. His melody is deeper than your doubt. And His love will never stop singing. Not for a moment. Not for a breath. Not for a single heartbeat of your life. Even in the silence of night, He sings. Even in the shadowed valleys, He sings. Even when you think you've lost your way, He sings you home. Because that's who He is. The God who saves. The God who stays. The God who sings. And He's singing over you now. There are songs that cradle you in the darkest night. Songs that rise not from instruments, but from eternal love. And God's song, His divine melody, is not bound to moments of perfection. It is sung right in the middle of your imperfections. It is not silenced by your struggles. It rises right through them. It is not withheld until you feel holy enough. It flows because He is holy enough. His voice doesn't sing over your performance. It sings over your personhood, your belovedness. You were not just created to be useful, you were created to be delighted in. You were not just rescued to be obedient, you were rescued to be rejoiced over. You were not just forgiven, you were embraced. And God does not merely tolerate you, He treasures you. He sings over you. You are not a burden to His heart. You are a blessing to His song. Can you imagine that? In the hush of night, when your thoughts wander and your fears echo, the Lord draws near, not with judgment, but with music. When the world feels too loud, He brings you into the sacred hush of His heart and quiets you with His love. No one else can quiet your soul like He can. Not with force, not with pressure, but with peace. A peace that flows from His presence. A peace that comes from knowing, I am held, I am heard, I am sung over. And if the God of heaven sings over you, what can silence you? What anxiety can overpower that harmony? What fear can drown out His joy? What lie can overshadow His truth? There is a melody resting over your life that no storm can erase. There is a harmony rising over your soul that no trial can mute. And there is a Savior who rejoices over you, not once, but always. The same hands that shaped the mountains are the same hands that lift your chin when you've bowed your head in weariness. The same breath that spoke stars into existence is the same breath that sings your name in love. And if the heavens declare the glory of God, your life declares the delight of God. You are His delight. Not His disappointment. Not His afterthought. Not His tolerated project. You are His joy. Yes, His joy. It may sound too good to be true. But grace always does. Because you know your flaws. You know your inconsistencies. You know your failures. But God sees you through the eyes of redemption, through the lens of mercy, through the blood of Christ. And what He sees makes His heart sing. The same way a parent sees their child, not just for who they are in the moment, but for who they are in the fullness of love. The same way a shepherd rejoices when he finds his lost sheep. The same way the father ran to his prodigal son and celebrated before the son could finish his apology. That's how your Father sees you. And He's not waiting to rejoice until you get everything right. He's rejoicing now, because you are His. He rejoices in your return. He rejoices in your trust. He rejoices in your belonging. Even when your voice is shaking in prayer, His voice is singing in joy. Even when your worship feels weak, His delight is unwavering. Even when you feel like you've failed, He is rejoicing over you with loud singing. So let the sound of heaven retune your heart tonight. Let it drown out the voices of the past. Let it silence the inner critic. Let it overwhelm the noise of your insecurities. Let it bring your soul into sacred stillness, the kind of stillness that knows you are safe in the arms of a God who sings lullabies of love over his children. Let your heart begin to hear what it's always longed to hear. You are mine. You are loved. You are not a mistake. You are not forgotten. You are not too far gone. You are not too broken. You are my delight. I rejoice in you. This is what the voice of the Father sounds like. Not thunder, not condemnation, but a song that dances through the night sky, a song that embraces you in the silence, a song that follows you through valleys and sings louder than the shadows, a song that says, "You are home in my love," a song that carries you when your own voice has grown tired. And one day, when we stand in glory, when all is made new, we will hear that song in full, unfiltered, undistorted, and forever echoing through eternity. But even now, that song is already singing. Over you. Over your life. Over your pain. Over your future. Let it wash over you tonight. Let it remind you that you are not alone, not forsaken, not forgotten. You are cherished. You are precious. You are deeply, wildly, eternally loved. And your Father sings. Even now. He rejoices over you with gladness. He quiets you by his love. And he exults over you with loud singing. Amen. The Good Shepherd watches over you. John 10 verses 10 to 16. He calls you by name. Not with a distant echo, not with a cold summons, not with a tone of obligation, but with the warmth of a shepherd's voice, tender and true. The Good Shepherd, Jesus. He knows your name. He knows your heart. He knows your story. And he calls you, not because he must, but because he longs to draw you near. I am the Good Shepherd, he says. I know my sheep, and my sheep know me. Not as a stranger. Not as a figure in the distance. But as a loving protector, an intimate guide, a constant presence who walks beside you in the meadow and through the valley. He is not merely a guardian watching from a distance. He is the shepherd who stays near. When others come to take, he comes to give. When thieves creep in to steal, he stands guard to protect. When the world shouts with noise, his voice cuts through the chaos, gentle, calm, unmistakable. He speaks peace into panic. He leads you not with force but with presence. He guides not with pressure but with love. This shepherd is not just strong, he is good. Not just capable, but compassionate. Not just mighty, but merciful. He knows the terrain of your soul. He knows the places where you've wandered. He knows where you've been bruised by the thorns of this world, where your heart has limped along, weary from the journey. And yet, he never recoils from your wounds. He does not turn away from your mess. He does not flinch at your weakness. He draws closer. He kneels in the dust beside you. He tends to your cuts with gentleness. He wraps you in his arms and carries you when your strength has failed. Because this is who he is, the shepherd who lays down his life for his sheep. Not a hired hand who runs when danger comes. Not a distant caretaker who forgets your face. Not a cold figure tallying your mistakes. But the shepherd who stays, who sees, who saves. He knows when you are lost before you even realize you've drifted. He seeks you out when you feel unreachable. And he rejoices when he finds you, not with shame, but with celebration. There is no guilt in his embrace, only grace. There is no scolding in his voice, only comfort. There is no disappointment in his eyes, only delight. Because you are his. You belong to him. And he watches over you, not occasionally, but constantly. He doesn't just visit. He dwells. He doesn't just check in. He abides. His eyes never leave you. His heart never grows tired of you. His love never wavers for you. Even when the shadows fall and you cannot see the path ahead, he is still leading. Even when the night is long and the world feels silent, he is still singing. Even when your soul feels lost, he is still near. You are never outside his care. Not in sorrow. Not in sickness. Not in sin. Not in silence. You are never hidden from his gaze. And if you ever wonder if you are alone, listen. Listen not for the noise of the world, but for the whisper of the shepherd's voice calling your name. The one voice that brings you peace. The one presence that brings you home. The shepherd walks ahead of you, clearing the way. The shepherd walks beside you, comforting your steps. The shepherd walks behind you, guarding your back. You are surrounded. You are protected. You are known. And he leads you to green pastures. He restores your soul. He walks with you through the valley of the shadow, not away from it, not around it, but through it. And you do not walk alone. This shepherd does not abandon his sheep when the terrain grows rough. He does not forsake you when you stumble. He does not leave you behind when you lag in weakness. He carries you. He defends you. He holds you. And when the enemy lurks in the dark, when lies hiss through the shadows, when fear tries to grip your heart, the shepherd lifts his voice, and every falsehood flees. Because his voice is truth. His presence is peace. His love is safety. And you, yes you, are safe in his care. You are not a number in the fold. You are not forgotten in the crowd. You are not overlooked in the chaos. You are his. You are chosen. You are cherished. You are watched over night and day, with unwavering care. Even now, as you rest, the shepherd watches. Even now, as your heart seeks quiet, he draws near. Even now, as the world fades to sleep, he stays awake. He never slumbers. He never grows weary. He never leaves. You are not alone. The Good Shepherd is with you. And he will never stop watching over you. Never stop calling your name. Never stop guiding your steps. Never stop loving you. Forever and always. Amen. The Good Shepherd does not simply know your name, he knows your need. He knows what weighs on your heart before the words ever form on your lips. He knows the silent battles you carry, the invisible burdens you hide, the prayers you've whispered when no one else was listening. And he watches over you, not passively, not from a distance, but with the tender care of one who sees you as infinitely valuable, eternally loved, unceasingly cherished. You are not a burden to him. You are his beloved. And he delights in being your shepherd. He does not tire of leading you. He does not grow weary of comforting you. He does not begrudge the care he gives, for he gave his very life so you could live in safety beneath his watchful gaze. He said, "I lay down my life for the sheep." There is no greater love than this. This is not just poetry, this is your reality. The cross was not only a moment of sacrifice, it was a declaration of your worth. It was the shepherd stepping into the thorns so you would be rescued. It was the shepherd standing between you and the wolf so you would be protected. It was the shepherd taking on the night so that you could live in the light. And still, he watches over you. Even now. Even here. Even in the quiet places of your life where no one sees, he sees. Where no one understands, he understands. Where no one reaches, he reaches. He is not just aware of you. He is near to you. Not occasionally. Not occasionally. But perpetually. Uninterrupted. Constant. His care does not pause when you falter. His love does not flicker when you fall. His presence does not retreat when you're broken. In fact, it's in those moments, the fragile, messy, raw moments, that his care becomes even more vivid, more tangible, more real. You see, the shepherd is not afraid of your frailty. He is drawn to it, because he is not just strong, he is gentle. Not just mighty, but meek. Not just above you, but beside you. He carries the lambs in his arms and gently leads those with young. He is not a shepherd who shouts from the hilltop and demands you climb up. He is the shepherd who descends into the valley to find you when you've lost your way. And when he finds you, he does not scold you for wandering, he rejoices over you with singing. There is no shame in his embrace, only joy. No condemnation, only compassion. No rejection, only restoration. You are not too far gone for the shepherd to reach. Not too broken for the shepherd to bind. Not too lost for the shepherd to lead. He is the shepherd of grace. He is the shepherd of healing. He is the shepherd who walks all the way to the edge of your pain and says, "You are mine." And nothing can snatch you from his hand. Not fear. Not failure. Not darkness. Not doubt. Not depression. Not despair. Not even death itself. Because you are held, not loosely, not temporarily, but eternally. Firmly. Securely. Tenderly. You are not clinging to him out of desperation. He is holding you with everlasting strength. And when you cannot hold on, he does not let go. He lifts you. He shelters you. He surrounds you. Even now, even as you read these words, his presence wraps around your soul like a blanket of peace. You are being watched over. You are being loved. You are being led. And oh, the pastures he leads you toward. Pastures of stillness. Pastures of healing. Pastures of joy that cannot be stolen. Pastures where your soul drinks deeply from the well of grace, and your heart finds rest it never knew it needed. He calls you by name again and again, and he leads you in paths of righteousness, not just for your sake, but for his name's sake. Because your shepherd takes joy in your peace. He delights in your wholeness. He is glorified in your flourishing. And he never loses sight of you, not for a single moment. When the night stretches long, he watches. When the shadows whisper fear, he stands guard. When your heart feels frail, he whispers peace. When you feel you're walking through a wilderness, he reminds you, he's walked this path before you. There is no terrain he cannot cross. No cliff he cannot scale. No pit he cannot lift you from. He is not only your shepherd, he is your waymaker, your defender, your song in the silence. And someday, when all the wilderness has passed, when all the trials fade like mist, when every sorrow gives way to glory, you will see him face to face. The shepherd who never left you. The shepherd who walked with you through every valley. The shepherd who carried you when you could not walk. And you will know with fullness what you've only glimpsed now, that you were never alone. Not once. Not ever. You were always watched over. Always protected. Always loved. Always his. So tonight, let your soul breathe. Let your heart rest. Let your mind be still. You are under the care of the shepherd. You are being watched over with a love that will never break, a kindness that will never falter, a presence that will never leave. You are safe. You are seen. You are home. And the shepherd is near. Always. Amen. The Lord bless you and keep you. Numbers 6:24-26. The Lord bless you and keep you. Let those words settle softly over your heart tonight. In the hush of this sacred moment, in the quiet stillness of evening, the ancient blessing echoes through time, gently resting upon you like dew on the grass. These are not just words, they are a divine covering, a prayer wrapped in heaven's breath, a holy benediction from the very heart of God. This is not just a farewell or a goodbye. It is a resting place. A final whisper of peace from the mouth of the one who holds all things, the one who never slumbers, the one who watches over your soul with perfect love. It is a blessing for your night, a comfort for your heart, a promise for your journey. Let your soul inhale it. The Lord bless you. What does it mean, this blessing of the Lord? It is more than favor, more than abundance, more than comfort. It is the very presence of God surrounding you, overshadowing you, covering you like a canopy of grace. It is the nearness of his goodness, the sweetness of his compassion, the certainty of his love. When the Lord blesses you, he gives you himself. He pours into your spirit what no earthly treasure can offer: peace beyond understanding, hope that endures, joy that overflows, strength for every step. He speaks over you not just with words, but with his Spirit. He draws near. He whispers to the hidden corners of your soul, and he says, I see you. I know you. I am with you. The Lord blesses you in ways the world cannot measure. He blesses your rest with calm. He blesses your heart with courage. He blesses your journey with grace. He blesses your nights with peace, and your mornings with new mercies. Even now, this very moment, you are being blessed by him, not because you earned it, not because you worked for it, but because he is good, because he is faithful, because he delights in you, and keep you. The Lord is not only the one who blesses, he is the one who keeps. What a tender word, keep. To keep means to guard, to protect, to preserve, to hold and never let go. The Hebrew word here, shamar, carries the image of a shepherd watching over his flock, shielding them from harm, staying awake through the night while they sleep safely in his care. And that is what your God does for you. He keeps you in his love when the world feels cold. He keeps you in His peace when anxiety tries to steal your rest. He keeps you in His truth when lies surround you. He keeps you in His strength when your own begins to fade. Even when you don't see it, He is keeping you. Even when you don't feel it, He is surrounding you. Even when your hands tremble, His never do. The Lord is not a distant observer. He is the keeper of your soul. He is the one who stands watch while you sleep, the one who places His hand upon your heart and says, "Peace, be still." He holds your life with care, with intention, with unwavering devotion. You are not left to fend for yourself in the storms of this world. You are not alone in the unknowns of tomorrow. You are not unguarded, not forgotten, not overlooked. You are kept, in every breath, every tear, every hour of the night. This is your resting place. You are held, blessed, kept by God Himself. Rest now in the gentle hush of His promise. The same God who spoke these words to His people through the priests of old now speaks them over you tonight. His blessing is not bound by time or temple walls. It travels across generations and lands softly on your heart right here, right now. You don't need to strive to be worthy of it. You don't need to perfect yourself to receive it. You only need to rest. You only need to let it wash over you. You only need to hear His voice in the silence and believe that you are not forgotten, not abandoned, not exposed to the elements of life. You are covered. You are seen. You are held. The Lord bless you and keep you. And in that sacred promise, let your heart exhale. Let your body soften into rest. Let your spirit lean into the arms that never grow weary. Let His peace be the final word tonight. The Lord make His face shine upon you. What a beautiful image! His face shining upon you. Not with wrath, not with judgment, not with distance, but with radiant, gentle delight. This is the light that warms your soul, the glow of divine affection, the brilliance of God's smile resting on your life. Can you feel it now? Can you sense the warmth of heaven leaning near, not to scold or scorn, but to tenderly look upon you with eyes full of love? When the Lord makes His face shine upon you, He is saying, "You are my beloved. You are seen. You are treasured beyond measure." This is not the glance of a stranger passing by. It is the loving gaze of the Father who knit you together in the secret place, who has numbered every hair on your head, who has counted every tear you've cried and kept them all in a bottle. It is the face that turned toward the broken, the face that looked with compassion upon the weary, the face that wept at the tomb and smiled at the little children, the face that shined on sinners with mercy and healed the outcast with a touch. This shining face is not distant. It is near. It is the face of Jesus, God made visible, God made personal, God made close enough to whisper your name in the dark. You don't have to earn that light. You don't have to perform for that affection. You don't have to fix yourself to be worthy of that gaze. It is grace, pure grace. Unasked, unearned, unshakable grace. And when His face shines upon you, your shame begins to melt. Your fear begins to loosen its grip. Your heart begins to soften again. Your soul begins to believe that you really are loved, not in theory, not someday, not when you finally get everything right, but right now, just as you are. Let His light flood the places in you that have been locked in shadow. Let His face shine on your sadness, your doubts, your wounds, your regrets, and watch how even the darkest corners of your heart begin to glow with new hope. You are not hidden. You are not forgotten. You are not lost in the crowd. You are bathed in divine light. You are seen by the one whose gaze carries healing. You are cradled by the one whose face carries favor. And be gracious to you. Oh, the grace of God! The deep river of undeserved kindness that flows toward you again and again and again. His grace is not just a pardon, it's a fountain. It's not just a second chance, it's a whole new life. And tonight, this grace is being poured out over you once again. Grace for your failures. Grace for your fatigue. Grace for the things you wish you'd done differently. Grace for the things you still don't understand. His grace meets you in the gaps. His grace covers what you cannot fix. His grace holds what you cannot carry. His grace comes not in condemnation, but in compassion. Be gracious to you, that's the heart of the Father. A heart that knows your weakness and still loves you fully. A heart that knows your story and still calls you worthy. A heart that never runs out of mercy, no matter how many times you've come back again in tears. It is grace that welcomes you back every time. It is grace that holds the door open. It is grace that wraps you in the robe of belonging, even when you feel like a prodigal returning in shame. You don't have to clean yourself up first. You don't have to be impressive. You just have to come, and grace will meet you. Be gracious to you. It's a whisper of divine tenderness. A reminder that your God is not angry. He is kind. He is gentle. He is the one who stoops low to lift you high, the one who bends down to meet you where you are. He is gracious when the world is harsh. He is gentle when your heart is fragile. He is patient when your journey feels slow. That's the God who blesses you tonight. Let your soul rest in His grace. Let go of the weight you've been carrying. Let His kindness be the final note in your heart tonight. Not guilt, not fear, not striving, but grace. Just grace. You are covered in it, drenched in it, surrounded by it. You are swimming in a sea of mercy, and His arms are underneath you, holding you fast. And now, let your heart stay here a little longer, in the warmth of His light, in the safety of His keeping, in the beauty of His grace. Breathe in this peace. He is near. He is good. He is shining over you. You are not forgotten. You are not forsaken. You are not unloved. You are held in blessing, wrapped in favor, and kissed by grace. Let your body relax into rest. Let your spirit find stillness. Let this ancient blessing become your nightly song, your quiet place, your shelter in the evening hush. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make His face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up His countenance upon you. Pause and let that image sink deep. The Lord, lifting His countenance upon you. Not just glancing your way, not just a passing flicker of attention, but lifting His face, fully turned toward you, eyes wide with holy affection, focused entirely on you. This is the loving attention of a father who does not miss a moment. This is the gaze of the shepherd who counts every sheep by name. This is the warmth of God's face rising like the morning sun over your weary soul. The lifting of His countenance means you are not beneath notice. You are lifted into divine awareness. You are under the watchful eye of heaven. The God of glory is not looking past you. He is looking directly at you, with love that is steady, unwavering, and intentional. Even when the world overlooks you, He never does. Even when others don't see your struggle, He does. Even when you feel like a small and flickering light, His countenance rises upon you like dawn. And when God lifts His face toward you, it means His attention is not cold, it is tender. His nearness is not vague, it is personal. His gaze is not distant, it is intimate. What does it do to a soul to be truly seen? What does it do to a heart to be held in the eyes of love? It quiets the storms within. It stills the trembling of shame. It brings healing to the wounded places. So tonight, may you rest knowing that His face is lifted toward you, not with anger, not with disappointment, not with judgment, but with holy affection, perfect understanding, and everlasting care. You do not have to strain for His attention. You already have it. You do not have to beg for His nearness. He is already here. You do not have to prove your worth. You are already priceless in His eyes. And when you feel invisible in this world, when you feel small in the vastness of your days, remember this: the Lord lifts His countenance upon you. You are not just noticed. You are cherished. You are not just acknowledged. You are adored. His face is your shelter. His eyes are your covering. His presence is your home, and give you peace. And now, the closing note of this ancient blessing, Shalom. Not just peace as the absence of conflict. Not just a pause in your busy world, but wholeness, stillness, harmony, restoration. A deep soul sigh that comes from being truly safe, truly loved, truly held. This peace is not manufactured by effort. It is given. It is not found in your performance. It is poured over you from heaven. It is not fragile or fleeting. It is eternal and secure. God Himself gives this peace. He is the giver of calm when the world is chaos. The giver of steadiness when everything else shifts. The giver of healing when your soul is tired of breaking. This is the peace that Jesus spoke of when He said, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you. Not as the world gives do I give to you." The world gives peace in conditions. God gives peace in covenant. The world gives peace in temporary relief. God gives peace in eternal rest. And this peace doesn't mean your life will be perfect. It means your heart can be held in perfect hands even when life is uncertain. It means there is quiet beneath the noise, rest beneath the striving, hope beneath the ache. This peace calms the trembling inside you. This peace brings oxygen to your soul. This peace wraps around you like a blanket in the cold. Receive it now, not by striving, but by surrender. Not by proving, but by opening. Let God give you peace. Let His Spirit soothe the tight places in your chest, the anxious places in your mind, the restless places in your heart. You are covered. You are held. You are safe in the stillness of God. His blessing rests on you. His gaze is upon you. His peace surrounds you like a river that flows through every part of your being. Breathe it in, G. Let it move through every thought, every muscle, every hidden place inside you. You are not just surviving, you are being restored. You are not just getting through, you are being blessed. You are not just managing stress, you are receiving supernatural peace that surpasses understanding. Let it hold you now. Let it rock you gently into rest. Let it be the lullaby your soul has longed for. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make His face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up His countenance upon you and give you peace. Peace like still waters. Peace like soft winds in the night. Peace like the arms of God wrapped gently around your heart. You are blessed. You are kept. You are covered in peace. The blessing that covers your future. The Lord bless you. Not just for today. Not just for this season. Not just for this moment. The Lord bless you in every tomorrow yet unseen. The Lord bless the roads you have yet to walk, the doors you have yet to open, the conversations not yet spoken, the paths you haven't yet dreamed of taking. This blessing is not just a soft whisper over the present, it's a powerful covering over what lies ahead. It's the voice of God reaching forward into your future, speaking peace into the unknown, laying grace like stepping stones across the unfolding days of your life. You do not walk blindly into the future. You walk blessed. You do not enter tomorrow alone. You enter with the seal of heaven upon your soul. The same God who stands with you now is already standing in your future, preparing peace before your arrival, writing mercy into your days, paving paths with provision before your feet ever touch the ground. So take heart. Nothing ahead of you is too dark for the one who is light. Nothing before you is too wild for the one who is your shepherd. Nothing coming can unravel the blessing that rests upon you like oil from heaven. The Lord keep you. When life feels heavy, there will be moments when the weight of life feels like too much to carry. There will be seasons when your strength feels like it's slipping through your hands, when your mind is tired from holding too many thoughts, when your heart feels worn from hoping too long. But oh, child of God, you are not responsible for carrying everything alone. The Lord keeps you. The Lord sustains you. The Lord bears what you cannot. You don't have to hold yourself together when the Lord is holding you. You don't have to pretend to be strong when the Almighty surrounds you with His strength. You don't have to fear falling apart, because in His keeping, even your brokenness is safe. He is the keeper of your soul, the one who guards your spirit when the winds blow harsh, the one who shelters your heart beneath His wings. Let yourself exhale tonight. Let yourself be weak in the presence of the one who never tires. Let your burdens roll off your shoulders and into the arms of the everlasting God who carries your sorrows and lifts your life with grace. He keeps you. When you're weary, when you're uncertain, when you can't see the next step, even there, especially there, He keeps you. The Lord make His face shine upon you. When darkness creeps in, there are nights when shadows feel heavy. There are moments when grief sits too long in your chest. There are hours when the weight of sorrow presses in like a thick fog. But in those very moments, His face still shines. Even when it feels like the light has gone dim in your soul, His radiance does not fade. Even when life feels overcast, His glory breaks through like dawn. He does not turn His face away from you in the dark. He shines upon you in it. He lights up the night of your soul. He becomes your candle when your spirit feels cold and flickering. He becomes the sunrise over your grief, the moonlight over your sadness, the soft gleam of comfort that reminds you, you are not forsaken. When the shadows whisper fear, His face whispers light. When sadness tells you you're alone, His presence says, I am with you. When your soul grows tired of waiting for joy, His shining face reminds you, joy is not gone. Joy is not lost. Joy is not forgotten. Joy is coming again. His light is not just something He gives, it's who He is. And when He shines on you, the shadows cannot win. So let His light fall gently over your spirit tonight. Let it warm you in your lonely places. Let it kindle hope again in your chest. Let it awaken rest in your bones. You are not left in the dark. You are lit by the face of God. The Lord be gracious to you. When you feel undeserving. Oh, how deeply we all need grace. Not just once. Not just for our salvation. But daily. Constantly. Moment by moment. When you falter, grace. When you doubt, grace. When you fail again, grace. When you forget the goodness of God, grace still holds you. God's blessing is not for those who have it all figured out. It's for the wandering, the weary, the inconsistent hearts who still dare to look toward heaven and whisper, Help me, Lord. And His response is always the same, grace. He does not bless you because you earned it. He blesses you because He loves you. He does not keep you because you're strong. He keeps you because He is faithful. He does not shine His face on you because you deserve it. He shines because that's who He is. So let go of guilt. Let go of self-condemnation. Let go of the heavy burden of proving your worth. God's grace is already flowing over you like a river, already covering you like a robe, already speaking over your life. You are mine. You are covered. You are enough because I am enough for you. This is grace. Tender, undeserved, and endless. And it is yours. The Lord lift up His countenance upon you. When you feel invisible. There are moments in life when the soul aches to be seen. Not just noticed, but truly seen. There are times when your efforts go unnoticed, your tears fall in silence, your battles are fought in hidden places where no one claps for your endurance and no one knows the weight you carry. But the Lord, oh, the Lord lifts His countenance upon you. He does not overlook you. He does not pass by your pain. He does not walk past your silent suffering. His eyes are fixed on you with divine tenderness. His gaze is gentle, kind, unwavering. He sees you in your quiet obedience. He sees you in your secret struggles. He sees you when your soul whispers prayers too soft for anyone else to hear. And not only does He see, you are His delight. You are not lost in the crowd. You are not just another voice in the wind. You are a child of heaven, a beloved one marked by His love. When God lifts His countenance toward you, it means He is not looking away. His attention is set upon you. His eyes of mercy rest on your weary heart. His divine focus is on you, as though you are the only soul in the universe. What comfort it brings to know, your God sees you. He sees your faithfulness when others don't. He sees your tears when others can't. He sees your longing when words fail. You are never unseen by Him. You are never overlooked in His presence. You are never forgotten under His gaze. Let His countenance lift your heart tonight. Let His eyes of love restore your sense of worth. Let His nearness quiet the ache of invisibility. You are fully, completely, and tenderly seen by God. And give you peace. Not just a feeling, but a foundation. Peace isn't just a soft emotion. It's a spiritual anchor. It's not merely the absence of noise. It's the deep, quiet stillness that God places in the soul even when the storm hasn't passed. And this blessing, the final whisper in the priestly benediction, is the crescendo of heaven's gift, peace. Peace to still your fears. Peace to cradle your anxious thoughts. Peace to settle your mind when questions swirl. Peace to hold your heart when chaos rises around you. This peace does not come from circumstances. It does not come from outcomes. It comes from the presence of the One who is peace. He speaks peace over you, not as a wish, but as a reality. He gives peace to your restlessness, not by changing everything outside of you, but by planting calm deep within you. You may walk through storms, but peace walks within you. You may carry burdens, but peace undergirds your spirit. You may face uncertainty, but peace remains your song. Jesus, the Prince of Peace, is the giver of this holy stillness. His voice calms the wind and waves, not just in the natural world, but in the hidden oceans of your heart. So tonight, let that peace settle over you like a soft blanket. Let it hush the noise of doubt. Let it hush the voice of fear. Let it hush the weight of what you cannot control. Let peace hold you in God's arms, gently and fully, until the only thing left stirring in your soul is stillness, safety, and rest. The blessing that stays when the prayer ends. This blessing, the Lord bless you, the Lord keep you, the Lord shine on you, the Lord lift his face toward you, the Lord give you peace, was never meant to be a fleeting prayer. It is meant to stay. It is not a temporary comfort, it's a permanent promise. Even when the words are no longer being spoken, the blessing continues echoing through your days. Even when the moment of prayer is over, the power of those words lingers like a fragrance on your soul. You may wake up tomorrow and forget what was prayed, but the blessing will not forget you. It walks with you. It clings to you. It surrounds you like a song your heart cannot stop hearing. Every time you feel like you're faltering, remember, you are blessed. Every time you feel abandoned, remember, you are kept. Every time the darkness creeps in, remember, his face still shines. Every time you feel unseen, remember, his eyes are upon you. Every time chaos shakes you, remember, his peace is your anchor. The blessing does not expire. The words do not grow cold. The power does not fade. It is divine oil poured over you, and it will keep flowing long after the prayer ends. It is the eternal echo of heaven's love, spoken once, sustained forever. A sacred seal upon your soul. The blessing is not just words, it is a seal from heaven upon your spirit. It is God's signature etched across your life, written in the ink of everlasting love. It does not fade with time. It does not weaken when your faith wavers. It holds firm when the winds rise and the storms break loose. It is your covering. It is your crown. It is your inheritance. The Lord bless you and keep you. Let these words not simply be heard, let them take root, deep into the marrow of your being. Let them reverberate within you like the echo of eternity. Let them become the rhythm of your breath and the anchor of your nights. Because this blessing is not a mere farewell, it is a divine commissioning. It is God placing his hand over your heart and saying, "You are mine. You are covered. You are seen. You are beloved. You are surrounded by mercy. Even when you walk through valleys you never chose. Even when grief presses against your chest like a shadow. Even when confusion clouds your way. You are not forsaken. You are hemmed in behind and before. You are carried on shoulders stronger than your fear. You are encircled by mercy that does not break, even under the weight of your weakness. When God says he will keep you, he means he will hold you in his arms when everything else is falling apart. He means he will station angels beside your dwelling. He means his spirit will hover over your sleep, silencing every lie that dares whisper in the night. This blessing is not poetic comfort only, it is spiritual armor. It is the fire around your home. It is the banner over your household. It is the guardian of your dreams. The radiance of his face upon you. The Lord make his face shine upon you. What beauty is there in this world that can match the light of his countenance? The blessing declares, God's face is toward you, not turned away, not hidden, not indifferent. His gaze is full of grace, not judgment. His eyes hold tenderness, not wrath. His face is radiant with love, a light no darkness can ever extinguish. You are not walking beneath a heaven of silence. You are walking under a sky that beams with divine affection. He looks at you the way a loving father looks at his child in wonder. He looks at you with pride, with delight, with unwavering compassion. Let that truth burn away every lie that ever said you were unseen. Let that light heal every wound left by rejection. You are not just noticed. You are cherished. You are not merely tolerated. You are treasured. You are not invisible. You are illuminated by heaven's face. Graced to stand, graced to rest. And be gracious to you. You do not have to strive to earn what has already been given. You are not sustained by your performance. You are sustained by his grace. Grace is the hand that holds you when your strength runs dry. Grace is the bridge that carries you when you cannot take another step. Grace is the balm that soothes the deepest aches of your soul. And it flows to you unceasingly. Not just enough to get by, but abundantly, overwhelmingly, endlessly. You have grace for this moment. Grace for tomorrow. Grace for the journey ahead. Grace for every tear. Grace for every triumph. When your heart falters, grace will not. When your plans fall, grace will rise. Let the blessing remind you, you are not walking alone. You are walking with grace at your side, peace at your back, and glory before you. Lifted into peace that cannot be broken. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you. This is a picture of God not just looking at you, but lifting his gaze upon you with honor, joy, and fatherly pride. It is the look a loving parent gives when they raise their eyes to say, I see you. I am pleased with you. You are not beneath a frown. You are under a smile. He does not merely glance, he gazes. He does not merely see, he rejoices. His countenance upon you is the holy declaration that you are not lost in the crowd. You are not forgotten in the multitudes. You are the apple of his eye, the delight of his heart, the song of his soul. And when heaven smiles upon you, no curse, no fear, no shadow can erase that light. Peace like a river, peace like a song. And give you peace. This is the final word in the blessing, but it is not the least. It is the crescendo, the holy hush, the sacred release. Peace. Peace that silences every storm. Peace that calms the trembling within. Peace that holds you together when the world comes undone. Peace that surpasses understanding and surpasses sorrow. It is more than absence of trouble. It is the presence of God himself dwelling in you. This peace is not passive, it is powerful. It rebukes fear. It crushes chaos. It restores what was shattered. You do not have to chase peace, it has been given to you. It is your inheritance, your portion, your covering. Sleep beneath it. Rise with it. Walk in it. Let your home echo with it. Let your soul settle in it. Let peace reign like a crown upon your life. Final benediction. A closing whisper from heaven. So now, beloved one, receive this final word like oil poured over your spirit. May the Lord bless you and keep you, even when you cannot feel him. May the Lord make his face shine upon you, even when shadows try to fall. May the Lord be gracious to you, even when you feel unworthy. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you, even when your head is bowed low. And may he give you peace, deep, lasting, heavenly peace. Through every season, through every sorrow, through every sunrise. Let this be the seal upon your nights and the anthem of your mornings. You are kept. You are seen. You are loved. You are blessed. Now and forever. Amen. And amen.